Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching first part of What If Naruto Was Trained by Jiraiya Before the Academy. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Naruto heard a lot of insults and jeers directed at him as he strolled through the streets with his head down, and a number of projectiles. One of the store owners yelled, "Get out of here, demon brat." A woman civilian said, "Someone should teach you some manners. Showing your face here is just shameful." Her husband looked at Naruto in disgust and remarked, "A boy like that would never have any manners, dear." These remarks didn't even make Naruto wince, he had already heard it all. Then something struck his face with force. He became aware that he was being attacked when he looked down and saw a broken eggshell and some yolk. A crowd gathered behind him as he ran. This was the part he detested, even though it wasn't new either. Anything they could find, the villagers threw at him. Naruto simply ran faster as rocks, sticks, and even the occasional dead rat were flung past him. Then he stopped. He was facing a man with long black hair who was glaring at him from both eyes while sporting a Junin jacket and some standard shinobi pants. "I won't let you hurt anyone else, demon. You killed too many people, and it ends here," he yelled furiously. Naruto was clueless about what he was discussing. Naruto could only make out blurs as the man's hands moved so quickly. A kunai was in the man's hand when it descended. Naruto began to flee as quickly as he could from the man. He had heard the term many times before, so he knew what people like this man were called. Ninja. Although Naruto had never encountered one before, he did not anticipate meeting one in this manner. After meeting with all of his various spies over the previous few years, Jiraiya was arriving from outside the village. He only visited the village when he had something to personally report to his sensei after his student passed away 10 years ago, and he lamented that he was unable to support him during his darkest moments. A few years ago, he returned with the intention of adopting his student's son, but the former council members forbade him from doing so because they did not want him to train the boy. He intended to bring the boy along this time, and if they wouldn't let him go, he would train him here for a year before he was forced to leave the village. When Jiraiya reached the village gate, he gave his pass to the two guards to enter the village. The sky was overcast and dark, as if it would soon begin to rain. He was walking through the village on his way to the Hokage tower to see his sensei when he heard a group of people yelling, "Get him!" He went to investigate the scene and discovered a group of chunins, genins, and civilians chasing a young boy. When he looked more closely and saw who that little boy was, he went completely crazy and sprinted toward the group in the hopes of reaching them before they hurt his sensei's only son. The group began to cheer when they saw a man with long white hair sprinting toward them at superhuman speed, believing the elderly man was rushing to join them in killing the demon. When Jiraiya arrived at the group, he killed the 5 chunins right away before unleashing a killing intent that brought everyone to their knees. Knowing that Jiraiya was in the village and that he wasn't happy about something, the third began to perspire while he was in his office when he sensed the intent to kill. Jiraiya first glanced at the civilians on the ground before turning to face the young child who was there, terrified for his life. Jiraiya pulled out some kunais and pointed at the 10-year-old Naruto on the ground, asking, "Does this look like a demon to you?" But no one responded. He walked toward the group and yelled, "Answer me, does he look like a demon to you?" But nobody responded. He walked back toward Naruto and yelled, "Then why the hell were you demons trying to kill him?" One of the civilians on the ground screamed, "He killed our hero." Jiraiya focused her killing intent solely on the man and yelled, "Don't you dare call my student your hero, because if he was really your hero you would respect his wish to see this young boy as a hero for holding that thing." "Gaki," Jiraiya asked, grinning at the weeping youngster, "are you all right?" "Yes, thank you, old man," Naruto said, dabbing at some tears that were streaming down his cheeks. Jiraiya ruffled the boy's yellow hair and said, "The name's Jiraiya the Gaki." Jiraiya grinned and said, "Let's go visit the Hokage for a little while now, huh?" Naruto tried to wash his clothes and said, "Gigi, I don't want the old man to see me like this." "Why is that?" Jiraiya raised an eyebrow in question. Naruto looked at the elderly man and replied, "Because he's going to ask me what happened and I don't want him to worry about me." Jiraiya smiled at the young boy and said, "Let's go." Jiraiya and Naruto were now strolling in the direction of the Hokage tower. He noticed all the filthy glances directed at the young boy as he looked around. When Jiraiya witnessed the way the people treated the young boy, his anger grew stronger by the moment. Sarutobi was preparing for what was going to happen after seeing what Jiraiya was upset about with his crystal ball, so he entered the tower without even turning to face the secretary and entered the office. Jiraiya instructed Naruto to wait outside while he spoke briefly with Sarutobi. Jiraiya looked at the elderly man and yelled, "What the hell, sensei? I come back and the kid was about to get killed by a group of shinobis and civilians." Asking quietly, "What, you wouldn't happen to know their faces, right?" Sarutobi called in 3 of his Anbu members. Jiraiya grinned at the elderly man and said, "I killed the 5 chunin that were in the group, and the rest are on the grong in the middle of the streets." The Anbus promptly set out to locate the other members of the group attempting to murder the young boy. "So, how long have you been here?" Sarutobi asked, glancing at his former pupil. "I have to check on my spy network in about a year," Jiraiya said, continuing to stare angrily at the elderly man. Sarutobi smiled at his pupil and asked, "What do you plan to do with Naruto?" Jiraiya was upset at the last part and said, "Teach him and take care of him. I can't believe Minato trusted these idiots with his only son." Jiraiya shouted, "They'll see, I'll turn him into a legend," and struck a pose that made Sarutobi perspire. "Where is Naruto?" the elderly Hokage inquired, glancing at his pupil. When Jiraiya called Naruto into the office, the yellow-headed character rushed in and jumped on Sarutobi's lap. "Hey Gaki, come in here." Gazing at the youthful incarnation of his deceased pupil, Jiraiya inquired, "Okay, where do you live, Naruto?" "In the orphanage, of course," Sarutobi said, glancing at Naruto, who simply lowered his head. "Gramps, they kicked me out of the orphanage 2 weeks ago. I've been living in the forest since then," Naruto cried. Everyone 5 blocks from the Hokage tower was frozen when Sarutobi and Jiraiya simultaneously yelled, "What?" with the intent to kill, rising through the roof. Sarutobi glared at the young boy and said, "They did what?" Sarutobi addressed the masked man in front of him and said, "Bear, please take whoever is in charge of the orphanage to Ibiki for me." The Anbu member said, "Hi, Hokage Sama," before vanishing in a whirlpool of leaves. Gazing at the elderly man, Jiraiya said, "Sensei, please give me the keys, I'll leave the rest to you." Naruto trailed closely behind Jiraiya as he left the workplace. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at a large compound adjacent to the Hyuga compound. When Jiraiya opened the large gates, they entered what appeared to be a small village with a large house in the center and several smaller homes along the street. They intended to utilize the training grounds in the compound's rear the following day. When Jiraiya and Naruto entered the main house, it was covered in dust and grime from 10 years of neglect. Since it was getting late, Jiraiya made the decision that they would clean it the following day. Although Jiraiya had his own house in the compound that he used to use when Minato was still alive, he spent the night sleeping inside the main house. The following day, since they used to turn off the hot water when it was time for him to take a bath in the orphanage, Naruto woke up and took a shower with hot water for a change. When Jiraiya woke up, she was still in bed, but Naruto had just finished showering. Jiraiya saw Naruto wearing an orange jumpsuit, ready to go to school, as he descended the stairs. He approached and stood behind him, examining the jumpsuit. Gazing at the young child, Jiraiya questioned, "Why do you wear this?" Naruto looked down and remarked, "That's all the store owner would sell me." After giving it another glance, Jiraiya pulled something from his scroll. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Take your shirt off, Gaki." Naruto removed his jacket, and Jiraiya laughed as she examined his body. "Do you ever work out, Gaki?" Jiraiya asked with a laugh. Naruto looked at the man and said, "No." Jiraiya looked at him and sealed his chest. "What is this?" Naruto inquired, glancing at the man. "It's a gravity seal, and it's supposed to make you stronger and faster," Jiraiya said, grinning at his godson. Naruto began to walk, but he was unable to move as he usually did because he felt like his body was heavy. Confounded, Naruto remarked, "My body feels heavier than usual." As she walked back upstairs, Jiraiya said, "You'll get used to it, so hurry up and get to school. Don't take shit from anyone." Jiraiya looked at the child with the spiked head and said, "Don't tell anyone about me or the gravity seal." Before heading to the academy, Naruto left the compound and made his way slowly toward the ramen stand. Naruto typically takes 2 minutes to get to the ramen shop, but he arrived in roughly 5 minutes. Naruto tried to walk more quickly to get used to the waits because the villagers were berating him and calling him derogatory names. Despite his best efforts, he was still 10 minutes late for the academy. Everyone in his class was laughing at him when he opened the door. Iruka looked at the young boy and yelled, "Naruto, you're late." "It's not my fault," Naruto said as he made his way to the back of the class, where Shikamaru, Choji, and Kiba were seated. As he passed Sasuke's desk, Sakura tripped him with one leg out, causing the entire class to laugh at the boy. He arrived at the rear of the class and took a seat next to Choji, who was noisily eating his chips, and Shikamaru, who was dozing off. He made an effort to focus in class, but he found it to be extremely dull, so like Shikamaru, he dozed off. As soon as he did, Iruka approached their desk and used his terrifying head jutsu to wake them up. They began discussing the class after Naruto and Shikamaru both woke up. It was time to practice throwing and taijutsu outside. Naruto, you will go up against Sakura in the taijutsu practice, laughed Mizuki. I love Sakura, so I don't want to fight her, Naruto thought. Sakura yelled, Shaw. Easy win, as she gazed at Sasuke with love in her eyes. Sakura adopted the academy style, while Naruto adopted the style Mizuki had taught him and simply waited for Sakura to attack. Because he was carrying half his weight in the seal, he was still unable to move at his typical pace. Even though Naruto kept his laughter to himself, Mizuki could see that he had adopted the style he had taught him. Mizuki smirked at the yellowhead and said, Go. Sakura charged at him with a rather pitiful pace, punching him in the nose to give him a head start. Naruto managed to hold his bleeding nose, but it was difficult for him to move his hand at all because he was still developing his motor skills. Naruto looked at the girl and said, But Sakura-chan, what did I ever do to you? Sakura kicked him while he was on the ground. He attempted to move out of the way, but was unsuccessful, and she continued to punch him in the face, causing his face to swell. That's for annoying me asking me to go out with you, she said. Even though he was unable to attack or defend himself from the attack, Naruto got up and kept fighting. He tried to punch her, but his muscles weren't moving all that well, so she punched him again, and he fell to the ground once more. Before kicking him in the stomach, Sakura yelled, That's for not respecting Sasuke-kun. Iruka interrupted the match just as she was about to launch another attack. Iruka raised the girl's hand and declared, Winner Haruno Sakura. The guys all began laughing at Naruto, and the girls joined in. Why can't you move, Naruto? Iruka asked, glancing at the blonde. I can't tell you, Iruka-sensei, Naruto said as he rose from the floor. Why not? Iruka inquired, glancing at the boy. Naruto said, I just can't, leave it at that, as he turned to leave the man. Naruto stayed behind as the class returned inside, and as soon as everyone had done so, he left to go home. People cheered when they saw him in such pain as he walked down the streets, his body covered in bruises. His body was so heavy that he had to take everything they threw at him, including insults, because he wanted to get home faster but the gravitation seal was slowing him down. Glancing around the classroom, Iruka asked, Where is Naruto? With the exception of Hinata, Shikamaru, and Choji, the entire class burst out laughing when Sakura said, I kicked his butt so he left the academy for good. When Shikamaru told his best friend Choji, There's something wrong with Naruto. Still eating, Choji remarked, Yeah, he was usually faster from anyone here, since he always used to pull all those pranks. Shikamaru said as she went to bed, I'm sure he'll tell us tomorrow. When Naruto arrived home, he found the house tidy and Jiraiya eating some of his homemade rice and vegetables while seated by the kitchen. Naruto entered wearing clothes that were soiled with dirt and blood. After a few minutes of staring at him, Jiraiya asked, What happened to you? Naruto lowered his head and remarked, I lost a taijutsu match in my class. Was it the seal? Jiraiya inquired, observing him. Naruto admitted with shame, Yes, and the fact that I don't know any taijutsu. Jiraiya looked at him and said, Didn't they teach you anything in the academy? Naruto looked at the elderly man in front of him and remarked, Iruka-sensei used to help me, then Mizuki-sensei decided to teach but I did everything he taught me one time and I almost hurt myself. He undermined the boy's education, Jiraiya believed, infuriated. I guess I'll get you caught up, Jiraiya remarked, glancing at the boy with the yellow hair. Jiraiya grinned and said, Run around the compound until you can't feel anything. Following his new sensei's instructions, Naruto began to run. He ran around the compound 5 times before collapsing to the ground because he was unable to keep his legs up. Jiraiya took him inside and prepared him some food because it was late when he finished his run. After finishing his meal, Naruto went upstairs to shower. He did nothing but stand motionless under the hot water until he felt clean. In the compound, Jiraiya was scheduling his next training session. For the next week, he would only work on physical and chakra control exercises to catch up to the other academy students. Physical training from 6 to 9 a.m. Speed training from 10 to 12 p.m. Target practice from 1-2 p.m. 3.7 chakra control, and taijutsu practice the following day. Tomorrow. At 5 in the morning, Naruto began stretching to begin his day. He became very excited when Jiraiya informed him that he would not be attending the academy for a week in order to catch up with the other children. Naruto began performing push-ups as soon as the clock struck 6 o'clock. After finishing, he performed sit-ups and pull-ups until it was time for his break. His body felt numb, so he went inside to eat. He ate during his break at home, and when the clock struck 10, he went outside to begin his speed training run around the compound. The academy. Looking around the classroom, Iruka exclaimed, "Where the hell is Naruto?" Sakura boastfully remarked, "I told him I beat his butt and he left the academy." Sakura waited for her beloved to say something encouraging. "I was awesome, right, Sasuke-kun," she said. In his typical Uchiha's better mood, Sasuke declared, "You and Naruto are pathetic." "But Sasuke-kun," Sakura begged, her face hurt by the remark. Shikamaru went back to sleep after saying, "Troublesome, don't you see that Naruto couldn't even move during the fight?" Kiba looked at Iruka and remarked, "Now that you say that he really couldn't move his body. I'm still better than him, I would still beat that baka," Sakura screamed, glaring at Kiba. Kiba said, "Whatever," and Akamaru simply barked. Iruka used his big, scary, head jutsu to yell, "Shut up." Sakura looked at Sasuke in pain because the Uchiha boy refused to even look at her. Ino was obviously relieved that her Sasuke-kun wasn't focusing on her, but she was also upset because he wasn't focusing on her. Naruto. After completing his run around the compound, Naruto noticed that his body felt lighter than it had before he began. After eating lunch, which consisted of a few cups of instant ramen, he went back outside and walked to another training area with some practice dummies. He began by practicing his target. After the speed and target training, he took a brief break to allow his body to cool down because he was mentally and physically spent. Naruto approached the tree after more than 20 minutes had passed and he had recovered some of his chakra. He began to walk on top of the tree near the small lake that was adjacent to the training area. It was challenging at first, but after falling on his butt for an hour, he eventually began to understand. He started to jump around, feeling proud of his new achievement, but he lost focus and fell straight down the tree onto his butt. Naruto rose and ascended the tree once more, this time without any issues. After he completed the day's training, Jiraiya and Naruto went inside and had lunch together, laughing and eating. Since the man took the time to teach him, Naruto began to see Jiraiya as the family he had never known. Even though Jiraiya had never been a great chakra control expert like Tsunade or a natural genius like Orochimaru, he could not help but see himself in the young Naruto as they laughed. Jiraiya's abilities included the ability to adjust in combat situations and the capacity to pick up the majority of ninjutsu through perseverance and hard work. This was not to deny that he possessed amazing abilities himself, though, as his team was shocked by his talent for seals. Most were surprised that Jiraiya could pick it up so quickly because it was thought to be such a high-level skill. Jiraiya recognized Naruto's potential as a shinobi. He might not be an excellent seal master, but he would put in the effort necessary to accomplish any task that was required of him. Even though Jiraiya had only recently met the boy, he was already falling for him the way he had his late student. He had not yet revealed to Naruto that this was his god-son. Given that Sarutobi had condemned him to a life of misery by preventing Naruto from being adopted by Jiraiya, he was undoubtedly disappointed that he had not been able to spare Naruto from his early years. Not being able to protect his godson from the haters and attackers in the village during the first few years of his life was the biggest embarrassment Jiraiya had to face. In order to look his student's wife in the eye and explain why Naruto was left to suffer the terrible fate he did as a child, he prayed that Kami would have mercy on his soul. Although he couldn't change Naruto's past, he would try to make sure that he could become like his father and accomplish anything he set his mind to. By sheer willpower, he would force the world to recognize him as the greatest Hokage. Jiraiya might only give Naruto this as a token of appreciation for all that she did not do for him as a child, and with that last thought. The following day, Naruto woke up the following morning, showered, stretched, and began his physical training. Jiraiya increased the gravity by 10%, and Naruto began running around the compound for his speed training after finishing his physical workout. Following the speed training, Naruto started training with Jiraiya in taijutsu. Jiraiya instructed him to replace the target practice and chakra control parts of his training with taijutsu training. After teaching Naruto the fox style, Jiraiya made a clone for him to spar with. The boy was taught the katas of the fox style by Jiraiya, and Naruto was able to learn the style's movements by using the clone as a sparring partner. At first, Naruto was taught the incorrect fighting technique at the academy, so the constant need to keep his fist up to defend his body and deflect attacks was completely alien to him. Jiraiya clarified, however, that this frequently left Naruto vulnerable to blows to the head region. He minimized the gaps by remaining vigilant. Furthermore, it was very unfamiliar to use deflections and to guide the punches. But Naruto could see how successful it was. The goal was to divert the energy away from the body, not to overpower the other person's fist or blow. Since each hand and fist was still attached to the wrist, you could force the fist away from the body by attacking this joint. The approach was to halt, avoid, or deflect attacks by using the user's body and speed. It was also very beneficial for them to use leg strikes during training to prevent the opponent from getting too close to the body. Since Mizuki always advised him to maintain an opening to keep the opponent at bay, he had never considered using his legs as his main weapon. But the Fox style employed leg strikes, a lot of flips, and continuous movement to overwhelm the adversary and attack with the ferocity of an animal. From head to toe, they would hit the opponent's body. Naruto's weariness from the gravity seals only grew after hours of using his legs in this way. To strengthen his legs and harden his bones, Jiraiya had him repeatedly hit a pole in the center of the training area. By simply performing backflips and twisting in the air to gain momentum, Naruto also practiced anticipating his opponent's blows. Jiraiya attacked Naruto by punching or kicking him. The Demon Fox container could only block, deflect, and avoid the blow without retaliating. Jiraiya was taking this action to improve the boy's reflexes so that he could react quickly in the event of an attack. After spending the entire morning working on this program, Naruto was relieved when it finally grew dark so he could eat lunch before continuing to practice. His legs hurt, so he sat down. "Man, I did not know my legs could hurt so much after all the training that we have been through." Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, you need to cancel the gravity seal when using this style because as you saw it requires fast movement." "Okay," Naruto said, grinning at his new sensei. "Naruto, don't flaunt your abilities aimlessly. Only do so during a battle," Jiraiya said, observing him intently. Naruto grinned at his sensei and said, "Okay, I never planned to." "It will not be easy tomorrow, so get some rest," Jiraiya smirked. Tomorrow. After waking up and stretching to get ready for the day, Naruto took off his jacket, leaving only his pants on, and began his physical training by performing push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups. It was now 6 o'clock. Naruto went inside to eat after the 3 hours were up, but there was nothing in the kitchen, so he made the decision to go to Ichiraku for breakfast. After getting himself and his sensei 10 bowls of ramen, Naruto returned home, making sure no one followed him so they wouldn't know where he lived. He was thankful that Jiraiya chose to help him develop his skills because he didn't want anything to happen to the man because of him. He wanted to make sure that no one knew where he lived because if they did, they would ruin his sensei's house. With the food he had just purchased for himself and his sensei, Naruto arrived at the house. After eating with his sensei, Naruto returned to work and worked on speed training for 2 hours before taking another break. Until he was ready to sleep, the same thing continued. 1 week later. Before spending the remainder of the day honing his taijutsu, Naruto prepared for his speed and physical training. Jiraiya's throwing accuracy was flawless because he would always get up to practice it with some chakra control exercises after falling asleep. Since his reserve was so large, his control was mediocre. Jiraiya assured him that once he perfected the tree climbing and taijutsu techniques, he would demonstrate additional control exercises. "Naruto, since you know the katas to the style, you'll get used to it while using it until you can completely master it. It's the perfect style against every other styles in the village," said Jiraiya as he looked at his sensei. Naruto asked in confusion, "How is that, sensei?" Gazing at him, Jiraiya said, "Let me explain the other styles to you first. First, the Uchiha style is based on anticipation using the Sharingan. With their ability to anticipate, they can respond accordingly. Since we're working on your speed and power of faking an opponent out at high speeds, then we can maybe use the anticipation style of the Sharingan against it. At that high a speed, the Sharingan user may fall for the initial attack because their body is trained to anticipate the strike. If we remove the time to adjust, they will instinctively follow the initial attack path to block. This could leave them open to attack when the attack is redirected too quickly for them to adjust. And since your style uses fast movement and has no exact pattern, it's perfect against them," said Jiraiya, taking a pause after that long explanation. Secondly, the Hyuga style relies on attacking chakra points using their hands with minimal emphasis on the feet. If we can focus your handwork to quick attacks and defensive maneuver like deflection, and all those other animal-like maneuvers, then you can work on countering their attacks. Also, while blocking their attacks, you can possibly use your elbow or feet as weapons to strike back while engaging their hand-based attacks. Also, the style will improve your avoidance by teaching you to swivel your hips, jump back, or roll away, flip back, and ducking in front of your opponent. As we progress, you will instinctively be more prepared to deal with their blows with deflection," said Jiraiya, looking at his student who was paying close attention to the explanation. Third, Guy's style relies on strength with fist and feet. It also involves lots of aerial moves. However, the Fox style teaches you to avoid blows with low groundwork, which will make their high-flying moves useless. Since they also use high speed, it will be a little harder to fight against. These areas are traditionally harder and sharper, which could inflict damage on the opponent. For example, if you use quick jabs to slow down the attacker punches, or you kick the inside of an enemy's leg to force them to jump back or prevent high-flying kicks, then they will have to adjust. Jiraiya went through each style one by one. Additionally, your style will give you great striking power with your leg, which will also keep your enemy back. Your legs will always be your strongest muscle, and it has the greatest reach, so focusing attacks from there only increases your attacking power. Also, by not staying close to your opponent, the chances of them landing a hit on you will decrease, Jiraiya explained. Naruto was bouncing around. Amazing he was. Do you understand that if you can at least stand toe-to-toe with these great taijutsu styles, then you will be able to battle any person? Jiraiya was staring at the child. I'll look after him, Minato, Jiraiya thought as she observed the boy. Jiraiya grinned and said, today, Naruto, we're going to do another kind of exercise. Naruto jumped around and exclaimed, what is it, some awesome fire jutsu or something? Jiraiya smirked as she looked at the boy and said, no, you're going to meditate. Naruto asked, staring at his sensei in complete bewilderment, how is that going to help me? It'll calm you down, and increase your ability to sense other people, and your reflexes, and it increases your control over your chakra systems, Jiraiya said as he looked at him. Naruto looked at his sensei and said, all right, then what do I do? Jiraiya demonstrated the sitting position for him and said, just sit still and clear your mind of everything. After assuming the position, Naruto started to purge his thoughts of all things. Academy. Iruka began searching, but he was still unable to locate Naruto. The day before, he searched the entire village for the child, went to the orphanage, but was informed that the former administrators had been arrested for ejecting a child from the facility, and he knew it had to be Naruto. He would notify the Hokage once more if Naruto failed to appear at the academy today. Iruka looked at the children and asked, has anyone seen Naruto in the past week? No, Shikamaru said, returning to his slumber. Iruka used his big, scary head jutsu to yell, Shikamaru, wake your lazy self up. Choji remarked, I'm sure he's alright, as he observed Shikamaru munching on his potato chips. At the end, Sakura said with tears in her eyes, who cares, everyone has been happy with him not being here, pulling practical jokes in class, annoying me, asking me out, isn't that right Sasuke-kun? Without even glancing at her, Sasuke remarked, I wish you weren't here right now, you're even worse than Naruto. Everyone burst out laughing at the girl with the large forehead, and Sakura began to cry at the remark. The boys just sat back and watched as Sakura and Ino got into another argument over the Uchiha after Ino was the first to start laughing. When Ino and Sakura fought over the Uchiha, they would always use insults. The boys wanted to watch them smash each other's faces, but they never did that. Iruka left the class, saying, I'll have to report this to the Hokage, leaving Mizuki in charge for the day. Tower of the Hokage. Sarutobi was reading some papers for recently received missions when Iruka entered the office. Sarutobi knew what this was about, and he looked up from the papers to see Iruka standing in front of him, worried. Iruka expressed concern, saying, Hokage Sama, Naruto has not shown up to school for the past week. I know where Naruto is, so don't worry, Iruka, Sarutobi said with a smile. Is he alright? Iruka asked hastily. Sarutobi looked at the young teacher and said, yes, he's in good hand. It seems like some teacher at the academy has been teaching the wrong thing on purpose. So he's trying to catch up to the other kids. Before leaving the office, Iruka bowed and said, if you say he's okay, I guess I have to go back to the academy. Iruka's body briefly returned to the academy, where all of the students were standing around as if nothing had happened. The mindscape of Naruto. When Naruto woke up from the meditation exercise, he was in a location resembling a sewer with water ankle deep. He heard a deep voice at the end of the sewer and glanced down the hallway, which was lined with small corridors that led to various locations. After following the voice through the sewer, Naruto came to a large gate with a seal in the center of it. A little alarmed, Naruto said, "Hello, is anyone here?" "Who is this?" the Kyuubi asked, glancing at the young boy outside the gates. Naruto said, "Who said that? Where am I?" as he retreated slightly from the gates. In a deep, proud voice, the Kyuubi declared, "It's me, the great and powerful Kyuubi no Yuko." Stuttering, K. Kyuubi. Naruto looked scared. The fox looked at the child and said, "Yes, kid, don't make me repeat myself." "Where am I? Am I dead?" Naruto trembled. The fox looked at the child and laughed, saying, "No, you're not dead, kid. You're in your mind." Naruto asked, still frightened, "What are you doing in my mind then?" as he gazed at the fox. "I'm sealed within you, so I live in your mind," the fox stated gravely. Jiraiya saw Naruto's terrified expression as he jolted to consciousness and entered the real world, and she knew immediately what this was about. Jiraiya approached him and took a seat next to his godson. Naruto was trembling and appeared afraid of his sensei. As Naruto calmed down and looked at his sensei, he explained, "Sensei, I just had the craziest dream. I woke up in a sewer and saw the nine-tailed fox, and he said that he was sealed in me, so he lives in my mind. He hoped the dream was only a dream." "That wasn't a dream, actually, kid," Jiraiya said, scratching the back of his head. "What?" exclaimed Naruto, halting to collect himself. Naruto began to cry as he said, "So, I am a demon like everyone said I was," just before Jiraiya struck him over the head, causing a small lump to appear on his head. Jiraiya looked at the child gravely and said, "You are not a demon, you hear me? I'll explain everything to you later. You have to go back in your mindscape," Jiraiya said, facing him. Jiraiya said, "Just trust me," when he noticed Naruto hesitating to return. After assuming the same meditative posture, Naruto found himself in the sewer-like area once more. He proceeded in the same manner and eventually found himself in front of the large gates once more. Naruto, still terrified but not as trembling as before, peered inside and saw the Kyuubi's head in front of the gates. Kyuubi looked at the boy and said, "Oh, you're back." Naruto looked around and said, "You say this my mind, why does it look like this?" Kyuubi looked at him and remarked, "Because you're pretty sad and angry, despite your outward appearance." Kyuubi looked at Naruto and said, "I'm sorry, kid. Your life wouldn't have been this way if I hadn't been duped into attacking your village." Confounded, Naruto asked, "What do you mean tricked? I never had anything with this village. Why would I just wake up one day and attack it? I was put under a genjutsu by a man named Uchiha Madara to attack this village for him since he couldn't do it himself with the fourth around and Jiraiya of the Sannin, and even Sarutobi here isn't around, so he put me under a powerful genjutsu which put me in a rage stage to attack the village," explained the fox as he recalled what occurred. Naruto recalled that the Uchiha family resided in this village and asked, "Did you say Uchiha?" The fox said honestly, "Yes, kid, I'm sorry for ruining your life, kid." Naruto sobbed as he peered around the sewer and said, "It's okay. I guess now that I know it wasn't your fault, is there anything I can do to make this place better?" Kyuubi looked around and said, "You can make this place a little more nice." Kyuubi looked around and said, "Just focus and turn this place into a forest or something." Naruto focused and began reflecting on the positive events in his life, such as meeting Jiraiya Sensei and spending time with Gramps. After 5 minutes, the water on the ground vanished, and the cage's interior transformed into a vast, verdant forest with numerous large trees. A lake beside the forest flowed calmly, and Naruto opened his eyes. He grinned as he glanced around after seeing his work. Kyuubi looked at the child and said, "Thank you, but let me ask you a question." "What is it?" Naruto inquired, glancing at his tenant. "Why do you continue to follow that pink-haired genin even though all she does is humiliate you?" asked the Kyuubi. "I don't know, I guess I love her," said Naruto, perplexed by the inquiry. The Kyuubi asked, "Do you think she loves you back?" Naruto remarked, "I don't know, maybe she will one day," recalling all the occasions he had asked Sakura out and she had simply slapped him on the head or made fun of him in front of the class. Naruto began circling his mind to view his memories. He saw all the instances in which he was beaten or cursed at simply passing their store, and he saw all the instances in which Sakura made him feel inferior when he was merely attempting to assist. As he continued to walk around, he saw his friends Kiba, Choji, and Shikamaru conversing in class, Iruka assisting him in class, the Hokage consoling him in his office, and Jiraiya eventually intervening to save his life. He decided to tell Jiraiya about it after noticing a seal on a door at the end of the hallway. He attempted to open the door but was unsuccessful. When Naruto returned to reality, he noticed Jiraiya looking over the wall into the next compound while holding something in his hand. Jiraiya Wall is observing some women taking a bath in the Hyuga compound. Naruto looked directly at his sensei and asked, "What are you doing, sensei?" Jiraiya looked at him as he tucked the telescope into his jacket and said, No, nothing kid, how was it?" Naruto looked at his sensei and said, "I started walking around until I saw a door sealed and I couldn't open it." They most likely sealed some of his abilities, Jiraiya reasoned. "Go back to your mindscape," Jiraiya said while performing hand seals. Jiraiya was standing next to Naruto when he closed his eyes and entered his mindscape once more. Jiraiya looked around and asked, "Where is that door, kid?" Naruto led Jiraiya to the door and said, "Follow me." When Jiraiya found himself facing a door title body, he performed a few quick hand seals, causing Naruto to grow 2 inches in front of him. His hair also grew to his shoulder, becoming even more untidy than it had been. As they entered, Jiraiya noticed another door with the word, "Brain," on top. He opened it and proceeded to walk around the room, coming across another door with the word, "Muscle." He opened it and left the room. When they returned to reality, Jiraiya was standing in front of Naruto, looking solemn. "How do you feel?" Jiraiya inquired, glancing at the child. Naruto looked around and said, "It feels like something is just in my head, and more power is flowing through my body. And my body feels light," Naruto remarked as he peered around. According to Jiraiya, who was closely examining him, run around the compound 1 time. To his surprise and Jiraiya's, Naruto began running while still wearing the gravitation seal, and he was able to run around the compound in half the time he usually did. With an angry expression on his face, Jiraiya thought, they put a seal on him, limiting his abilities. Jiraiya grinned and said, "I knew it, he got the Namikaze speed ability." "Stop, Naruto," Jiraiya said, grinning at the child. "I'm going to teach you another chakra control exercise before I teach you a jutsu," Jiraiya said with a grin. Naruto looked at his sensei and asked, "What is it?" while laughing. Jiraiya walked toward the back of the compound and said, "Let's go by the little lake that was made in the back." Naruto followed him, walking slowly and holding his hands behind his head. When they arrived at the lake, Jiraiya began to walk on the water to show him how to perform the exercise. Naruto jumped out of the water and fell into the icy water, trembling because Jiraiya had sealed the water the night before, making it dangerously cold. Naruto glared at his sensei and yelled, "Why the hell is this water so cold?" "I apologize for forgetting to mention that it was cold," Jiraiya smiled. "Now start walking on the water, just channel the right amount of chakra to the bottom of your feet like the tree climbing exercise," Jiraiya chuckled. In order to avoid falling into the water when the chilly waves came around, Naruto climbed onto the water and began walking on it while continuously adjusting the chakra to the bottom of his feet. With a broad smile, Naruto emerged from the water and approached his sensei. As soon as he reached the location, he saw Jiraiya waiting for him. Jiraiya performed some hand seals, uttered the words, "Kuchio's no jutsu," summoning jutsu, and conjured a toad of human height. The toad suddenly appeared, so Naruto leapt back and stared at it. The toad courteously said, "Hello Jiraiya. Sama, what can I do for you?" Jiraiya addressed the toad, saying, "Hey Gamaki, I need the contract." Before opening his mouth and releasing a large scroll with his tongue, the toad questioned, taking on a new apprentice. "Yes," Jiraiya replied, grinning at the toad. Jiraiya scratched the back of his head and said, "This is Naruto, the kid with the QB sealed in him. Gamaki is the contract holder for the toads." "Hello, Naruto-san," Gamaki said, glancing at the child. Naruto said, scratching the back of his head, "What's up, Gamaki-san?" Jiraiya pointed to the area next to Minato's name. Naruto bit his thumb to draw blood, wrote his name on it, and signed at the bottom. "Okay, Gaki, now with the jutsu I said I was going to teach you. Sign your name in blood in this scroll while I explain it to you," Jiraiya said. Confounded, Naruto questioned, "If it's a jutsu, why was there only 2 names on it?" "It's a powerful jutsu, and I was the first one to sign it and I get to choose who I pass it to. It's the summoning contract to summon toads in battle. I taught it to my last student and now I'm going to teach it to you," explained Jiraiya as he looked at his pupil. Naruto looked at Jiraiya and remarked, "So you were the 4th sensei, since he was the only one who could summon toads before." Jiraiya grinned and thought, "He's smarter now, must be the seal that I removed from his brain allowing him to think better. Yes, I trained the 4th Hokage, but that's a tale for another time. Here are the hand seals for the jutsu, Jiraiya said, demonstrating the jutsu's use. A small orange toad wearing a blue jacket materialized in front of Naruto as he performed the precise hand seals Jiraiya had just demonstrated to him and uttered the words, Kachiyose no jutsu. Summoning jutsu. Looking at the kid with the yellow head, the little toad exclaimed, "Who the hell are you, kid?" Naruto looked at the small toad and said, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Who are you?" Gamakichi, who was staring at the boy with the yellow hair, said, "My name is Gamakichi. What do you want?" Naruto glared at the small toad and exclaimed, "I was just trying out this jutsu brat." Gamakichi looked at the boy and yelled, "Did you bring any snacks?" Naruto looked at Jiraiya and said, "No, I didn't know I needed any." After vanishing in a puff of smoke, Gamakichi said, "Next time, bring some snacks before summoning me." Jiraiya was taken aback by the child's ability to call forth the boss toad's son on his first attempt. He grinned at the boy's progress, as he had assumed that he would need to toss him off a cliff in order for him to master the jutsu for a minute. After giving his sensei a proud look, Naruto and his partner went inside for a quick snack before carrying on with the training for the day. Naruto chose to discuss what he had heard from the fox with his sensei because he was still considering it. Jiraiya chose to strike up a conversation after noticing Naruto's expression. "What's on your mind, Gaki?" Jiraiya inquired as she observed him consuming his meal. "In my conversation with Juubi, he told me that he was tricked into attacking the village by a man named Uchiha Madara. I thought the Uchihas were from Konoha. Why would he want to destroy the village?" Naruto was completely perplexed. Jiraiya considered the situation and thought, "Uchiha Madara, I knew the fox wouldn't just attack the village for no reason." Jiraiya looked at the child gravely and said, "Naruto, what the fox told you is probably the truth. Before there is a legendary version of the Sharingan that is said to be able to control the tailed demons." As Naruto looked at his sensei, he asked, "Who is this Uchiha Madara? He must be very powerful to be able to control a tailed demon." Uchiha Madara was one of the founding fathers of the Hidden Leaf Village. He left the village because the first became Hokage and not him. I think the reason that he wants the village destroyed is because the other Uchihas did not leave with him, Jiraiya said with a serious expression on his face. Naruto looked worriedly at his sensei and said, "So that's the problem, do you think he's still alive?" Juubi said over their mind link, "I think so, kid, not many people know he's still alive." Naruto, with the kind of things that will happen in the future, I want you at least to have a childhood that you can remember. You're going back to the academy tomorrow, just make sure you act normal, come up with some kind of excuse to why you wasn't in school. Do you have any friends in the academy? Jiraiya asked the child. Naruto reflected on all the people who had been kind to him and said, "Yeah, I got Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, and Shino, but he's usually very quiet." Naruto thought about the girl and said, "Oh, and there is Hinata, she usually faints when I talk to her though." Jiraiya smiled at the boy and said, "Looks like that girl has a crush on you." Jiraiya took out a piece of paper and began writing the new training schedule for his godson. "Naruto, since most of the things that will happen might involve this village in some way in the future, I want you to enjoy the rest of your childhood with those you hold dear. I'll be making you a new training schedule for the time you're in the academy," he said. After completing the schedule, Jiraiya gave it to Naruto so he could review it. Monday 6 a 7 a.m. Physical activities 7 to 8 a.m. Eat, then go to school. Academy, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. Lunch. Friends from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Meditate on Hokage Mountain from 5 to 7 p.m. Taijutsu practice and speed training from 7 to 10 p.m. Tuesday 6 a 7 a.m. Physical activities 7 to 8 a.m. Eat, then go to school. Academy, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. Lunch. Friends from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Training for summoning. Taijutsu practice and speed training from 7 to 10 p.m. Wednesday 6 a 7 a.m. Physical activities 7 to 8 a.m. Eat, then go to school. Academy, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. Lunch. Friends from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. 5 o'clock to 7 p.m. Chakra control. Taijutsu practice and speed training from 7 to 10 p.m. Thursday 6 a 7 a.m. Physical activities 7 to 8 a.m. Eat, then go to school. Academy, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. Lunch. Friends from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Meditate on Hokage Mountain from 5 to 7 p.m. Speed training and taijutsu from 7 to 10 p.m. Friday. 6 to 7 a.m. Physical activities 7 to 8 a.m. eat, then go to school. Academy, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. 1 o'clock to 2 p.m. Lunch. Friends from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Training for summoning. Meditate from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturday. You can do anything you want for the entire day. Sunday training in taijutsu, strength training, chakra control, seals training, and meditation. Naruto closed the scroll after finishing the new schedule and placed it in his pocket for occasional glances. Jiraiya grinned as she observed how much of Minato and herself the boy shared. He was both a natural genius and an idiot. Despite having just recently met, Naruto and Jiraiya were already developing a close, familial bond. Jiraiya made the decision that he would inform Naruto that he was his godfather tonight. He was still unable to tell the boy about his father because of a village law, but since his father lived there, he will undoubtedly learn about it on his own now that he is in the house. Jiraiya grinned at Naruto and said, "You begin with the schedule tomorrow, which is Tuesday. I can't forget Sakura-chan, and I finally get to see Shikamaru and Choji again." Naruto chuckled as he considered the pink-haired girl in his class. Considering all the times he had to heal Naruto from Sakura's blows, Kyuubi thought, "I'm not even going to tell, he should find out for himself that the girl is an evil bitch." With a serious expression on his face, Jiraiya said, "Naruto, I have something to tell you." Naruto asked, "What is it, sensei?" After observing his sensei's expression. "I can't tell you about your parents until you reach a certain, or find out by yourself because it's a law in this village. We wouldn't want people finding out who your parents were since they had a lot of very powerful enemies that you are not ready for yet," Jiraiya grimly replied. Naruto thought about what Jiraiya had told him. "I understand that because Gramps would have told me by now, but they must have been very powerful to have enemies that would go after their kids," he said. "Yeah," Jiraiya said, smiling at him, "and I was a personal friend, that's why they made me your godfather." Naruto asked angrily, You my godfather. Where the hell have you been all this time then?" "I wasn't done," Jiraiya lamented. "When you were born, I tried to adopt you." Sensei said yes, but the council bastards wouldn't let me, saying that I was the village's only spy master, that I couldn't stay in the village to raise you. "When you were 5 I tried to adopt you again, but they still wouldn't let, and Sensei said that he would make sure that you were all right. I would have left the village with you, but since you have the fox sealed in you, they made sure that you couldn't leave the village, and if you traveled with me we both would have died since I had to fight a lot of enemies, and I thought you would have had a better childhood in the village than with me, since I never stayed in the same place for more than a few weeks," stated Jiraiya with sorrow and regret, looking at the child. "I'm sorry, Sensei. I didn't know," Naruto sobbed as he looked at his sensei, feeling bad because he had started yelling without cause, making his godfather very unhappy. Jiraiya looked at him and said, "It's okay, Gaki." Jiraiya got up and said, "Get ready, we're heading to the Hokage's office before we go buy grocery." To prepare for his visit to Gramps' office, Naruto went inside to take a shower. Jiraiya was waiting for Naruto when he came downstairs wearing his orange jumpsuit after taking a shower. Jiraiya wanted to burn the jumpsuits while the child slept because he detested them so much. While they were shopping, he would make sure to get him some new clothes. Looking at the boy's attire, Jiraiya questioned, "Naruto, why do you wear this jumpsuit if you really want to be a ninja?" Naruto looked at his sensei and laughed, "Because that's all they would sell me, and the man made me pay a lot for this cool jumpsuit and he sold it to me on a discount," Naruto said. When Jiraiya asked, "How much did you pay for this exactly?" she raised an eyebrow. Naruto chuckled and said, 600 ryo. Don't know currency. "Do you know where this shop is?" Jiraiya asked, grinning. "Yeah," Naruto said, perplexed. With a menacing grin, Jiraiya asked, "Would you mind showing me later so that I can't buy some clothes?" Naruto, a little alarmed by the blood on his godfather's face, said, "Okay." Since they had nothing to do, Jiraiya and Naruto left the compound first, moving slowly as they made their way to the Hokage's office. Since their compound was adjacent to the Hyuga's, Naruto and Jiraiya passed in front of it. Naruto had never been in this area of the village before because he was unaware of it. When Jiraiya saw that people were hurling objects at Naruto and calling him derogatory names, he made the decision to change into an elderly man. When Naruto caught a bottle thrown at him by a middle-aged woman, 3 Anbus suddenly materialized and took the woman into custody for breaking the third law. As Jiraiya usually did, they arrived at the Hokage's office and entered through the window, but Naruto was unconcerned because he never really knocked or waited to be called in. Shikamaru was in the middle of discussing with the Hokage why Naruto wasn't in school when they entered the office when Shikamaru noticed Naruto coming in with an elderly man following him. "So troublesome," I was just asking the Hokage if he had seen you, Shikamaru said, his face displaying boredom. Naruto said, Shikamaru, what's up? While sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. Shikamaru asked, glancing up and down at Naruto, where have you been, did you grow taller? Jiraiya looked at the elderly man and said, that's why I came here, sensei. Sarutobi looked at Jiraiya and asked, what is it? Are you certain this boy can hear this, Naruto? Jiraiya asked, glancing at him. Naruto laughed and remarked, of course, Shikamaru is one of my friends and he's trustworthy. Shikamaru looked at Naruto in shock and said, wait, Naruto, you're hanging out with Jiraiya of the Sannin. Naruto looked at Shikamaru and laughed, saying, it's a secret between me and you, right? Troublesome, but yeah, Shikamaru remarked as he sat. Naruto looked at the astonished boy and laughed, he's my godfather. No way, Naruto said, glancing at him. After performing a few hand seals, Jiraiya said, sound seal, and covered the room with a sound seal so that only those present could hear what they were saying. Sensei, the academy teachers has been teaching Naruto the wrong things on purpose, and there were 2 seals placed on him to limit his body and mind. There was one on his brain and one on his muscle. Jiraiya told the elderly man. With a serious expression on his face, Sarutobi asked, did you figure out who put them on him? Gazing at the toad sage, Naruto asked, why would someone do something like that to Naruto? Is it because of the pranks we use in the academy? Sarutobi hoped the young boy would comprehend when he said, no, it's not that they hate him for something he has no control over. Shikamaru shocked everyone in the room by saying, because of the fox. Naruto looked at the boy in fear and said, how did you find out? That time the lady was calling you a demon, and the marks on your face. Don't worry, I didn't even tell my parents. It's troublesome though, the village is kind of lucky since you still don't hate those people for what they do to you, said Shikamaru as he rubbed his head. Jiraiya grinned and said, I took off the seals and he grew a couple of inches in front of me, and his mind kind of understands stuff better now. Don't get me wrong, he's still a fool. Naruto glared at him. Shikamaru looked at him and said, so, when do you go back to the academy? It's not the same without your pranks. It's such a drag, you know. Naruto laughed and said, why the hell is everything a drag to you, Shikamaru? Because everything is, Shikamaru remarked, glancing at his companion. I'll be back tomorrow. Naruto grinned. After Jiraiya dropped the sound seal, Shikamaru opened the door and said, I'll be waiting for you. I got to go home because my mom will kill me if I'm late for dinner. She's such a drag. Jiraiya said, good kid, as he glanced at his sensei. Sarutobi looked at the boy and said, so, Naruto, how is it going? Naruto looked at the elderly man and laughed, saying, I'm fine, Gramps. Did you miss me? Sarutobi laughed and remarked, of course those paperwork were boring me to death. Wait till I'm an old Hokage, Naruto said, glancing at him. Jiraiya walked toward the window and said, Naruto, let's go. We need to go to the store to get you some clothes, since these clothes are already too small for you. Naruto walked toward the window and waved his hand at the elderly man, saying, I'll see you later, Gramps. After they both leapt out the window, Naruto began pointing Jiraiya in the direction of the shop where he had purchased the jumpsuit. When they arrived at the store, Jiraiya changed into a miniature version of Naruto, and Naruto changed into Shikamaru, and they entered. While still disguised as Shikamaru, Naruto picked up a pair of black shinobi pants with numerous pockets and asked the man how much they cost. The man replied that it was 200 ryo. When Jiraiya asked the man how much the orange jumpsuit cost, he replied that it was 700 ryo. Jiraiya questioned, why is this 700 ryo while his pants are 200 ryo? And continued to change into Naruto. Because he's not a dirt like you, you're lucky I'm willing to sell you anything, replied the individual. After Jiraiya and Naruto both dropped the transformation, Jiraiya stood in front of the man and let out a crazed amount of murderous intent. Gazing at the man, Jiraiya questioned, why do you take advantage of the boy like this? The man said, I, while focusing on Jiraiya's eyes. Naruto begged his sensei to leave it alone. Jiraiya continued to stare at the man and said, you see, even though you've been doing him wrong, he still doesn't want anything to happen to your miserable life. The frightened man said, I'm, Jiraiya looked at the man and laughed, what if I decided to kill you for all you've done to him? The store owner swore at himself after that. Naruto begged the man, Sensei, don't do that, Why? Jiraiya inquired, still giggling. The store owner opened his cash register and said, because I'll return all the extra money I made off of him. Really, it's okay. I just need some clothes, Naruto said, glancing at the man. WH. What are you looking for? The man asked, observing the boy before him. Grinning, Naruto remarked, I need some orange pants. The man observing him said, are you sure? Orange isn't a color for ninjas, you know. Yeah, he needs some black pants and a black long-sleeved fishnet shirt to put under his shirt. A long-sleeved orange and black shirt since he seems to like orange, Jiraiya said as he examined the child. The store owner looked at them and asked, do you need any sandals? Jiraiya looked at the store owner and said, yeah, some black ones to match his pants. The store owner asked, how many sets do you want of the clothes? Jiraiya grinned and said, I'll take 5 since he's still growing and they'll get messed up anyhow. After taking Naruto's measurements, the store owner said, I'll give you the fishnet shirts, the pants, and the sandals. You can pick up the shirts in about 2 hours. Jiraiya was about to leave the store when Naruto pulled out some cash to pay the man after he had taken his measurements and given them the sandals, fishnet shirts, and pants with white bandages. The man refused to take the money, saying, no, this is free, but you'll have to pay next time. Naruto placed the money on the counter and said, no, I'll feel bad about getting all of these things without paying, even though I had enough money for it. The old man grinned and said, what a good kid, it's sad I didn't realize that earlier. Naruto now had a new ally. Since they weren't in a rush to get home, Jiraiya sealed the clothes in an empty scroll he carried with him and they began walking slowly in the direction of the market. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at the store and purchased what they needed, despite the fact that some of the store owners were arrested for refusing to feed the demon brat. They left the store slowly without paying after Jiraiya once more sealed the groceries they had purchased. Jiraiya gave Naruto a slap across the head after he began to laugh at his sensei. Naruto looked at his sensei with stars in his eyes and said, let's go get some ramen. Jiraiya laughed and asked, Naruto, why do you like that ramen so much? Naruto looked at his sensei and said, you have to taste it to know. Naruto was shocked to find the gravity seal still in effect and unable to sense it as he began to run toward the ramen stand. Since Naruto was becoming faster and faster, Jiraiya decided he had to put on a gravity seal on himself. Although he was still faster than Naruto, he would not be able to catch up to him in a few years because it ran in his family. In front of the ramen stand, Jiraiya easily caught up to Naruto. The elderly man grinned at them as they entered the ramen stand and sat down. Where have you been, Naruto? The elderly man inquired, grinning at the boy. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly and said, you know, we're catching up on some stuff. The elderly man pointed to Jiraiya, who was seated beside Naruto, and said, who is this with you? That's my godfather, Naruto chuckled. The elderly man handed them 2 menus and asked, what do you want? With stars in his eyes, Naruto declared, I'll get 3 miso ramen. Jiraiya laughed at the child and said, I'll get a pork ramen. Coming right up, the elderly cook said. They began eating after old man Ichiraku brought them their orders, with Naruto rapidly gulping down the ramen. Before Jiraiya could finish the bowl he ordered, Naruto finished his 3 bowls. They paid and left the ramen stand, Naruto complaining that they should have stayed longer because he was still hungry. Jiraiya grinned as he observed Naruto, who so strongly reminded him of his late pupil Minato. Naruto and Jiraiya headed to the clothes store to retrieve the shirts the elderly man was making for Naruto. They arrived at the store and entered in search of the elderly man. Jiraiya looked at the elderly man and asked, are you done with the clothes? The elderly man gave Jiraiya the shirts and said, yes, sir. Naruto said, thank you, as he left the store. The elderly man waved at them and said, come again. The Namikaze compound. When Jiraiya and Naruto got there, they opened the scroll, took out the food and clothing, and placed them in their proper locations. Since it was only 7 and they still had time to train, they returned to the training area outside. Jiraiya concluded that since Naruto the Shadow Clone had a vast chakra reserve, it was time for him to teach him. Naruto waited for Jiraiya to give him instructions on what they should do next. Jiraiya grinned and said, okay, Naruto, I'm going to teach you a jutsu now. Yippee, it's about time, old man, exclaimed Naruto, leaping with delight. Naruto jumped in front of Jiraiya and laughed, saying, it's a cool fire jutsu, ain't it? No, but it's useful for training, Jiraiya said, glancing at the child. Huh, what is it? Naruto inquired, glancing at his sensei as he began to relax. "You're going to get it easily because your chakra reserve is large," Jiraiya said, glancing at the boy. Naruto asked impatiently, "What is it already, sensei?" Jiraiya slapped him over the head and yelled, "It's called the Shadow Clone." As he explained everything to the boy, Jiraiya looked at him and said, "You are not to use it in front of people, we'll only use it for training for now." Naruto asked, staring at his sensei in confusion, "How does that help me? What is a shadow clone anyway?" Jiraiya demonstrated the hand seal to Naruto by creating a clone of himself, saying, "The shadow clone makes a physical copy of yourself." Naruto looked shamefully at his sensei and said, "I could never make a clone in class." Jiraiya smiled as she looked at the child and said, "It's because you have way more chakra than the kids in your class, and your control sucked since you never had anybody to help you with it." As Naruto performed the seal for the shadow clone, he immediately made 5 clones of himself. "Oh, that makes sense since I have more chakra it's harder to control it," he said. Naruto looked at his sensei and asked, "How does it help my training?" One of Jiraiya's clones said to another of Naruto's clones, "Okay, come with me." The clone then followed Jiraiya to the front of the compound. Jiraiya's clone said, "You are an idiot," before striking Naruto in the stomach and dispelling it. Naruto then dispelled himself. Naruto looked at Jiraiya and yelled, "Who are you calling an idiot?" Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "You see now whatever your clone experience when they are dispelled is passed on to the original." "Awesome," Naruto exclaimed, leaping about. Jiraiya grinned at the child and said, "Okay, Naruto, since you got it, make 6 clones for training the rest of the night." Jiraiya looked at the child and asked, "What are you the worst at in the academy?" Naruto looked at his sensei and said, "The 3 academy ninjutsus." He then performed the single-handed seal, declared, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu, and instantly made 6 clones of himself. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Send one to run up and down the tree and one to do the tree climbing exercise." Naruto turned back to face his sensei after giving the clones instructions from Jiraiya. "One to work on the transformation, do it until it comes natural to you. Send one to work on the replacement jutsu, and 2 to do like the tree climbing, 1 running 1 walking." Jiraiya was addressing the child. Naruto looked at his sensei and asked, "What do I do?" With a glance at the child, Jiraiya said, "You are going to meditate." "Okay. Where?" Naruto inquired, glancing at his sensei. "Right where you are, kid," Jiraiya said as he sat down to meditate. "Sensei, tell me why people meditate," Naruto said as he sat down. Jiraiya looked at the boy and then closed his eyes. "Because it relieves stress and relaxes the mind, making a person's reflex quicker and you can sense the things around you," he said. Naruto followed suit, and for the next 3 hours, they remained in that position as the clones practiced controlling chakras and learning 2 of the 3 academy ninjutsus. The following day, since Naruto was asleep when the clones vanished, he was experiencing the training from yesterday and could tell that his chakra control had significantly improved. After successfully executing the transformation jutsu on his first attempt, he chose to try the replacement jutsu, which allowed him to substitute himself with a small, fluffy fox toy that was in his room's corner. Despite his happiness, Naruto chose to jump around before beginning his physical workout because, as he had learned from his meditation yesterday, he shouldn't get excited or angry over little things. Jiraiya wasn't yet awake when Naruto went downstairs to the training area, so he chose to let him sleep. Before beginning his workout, Naruto stretched and said, "Here we go." After finishing his stretching, Naruto began performing push-ups while maintaining his gravity seal, which allowed him to get the most out of his physical training. He performed 100 pull-ups after completing 100 sit-ups. Before taking a shower, Naruto chose to complete the physical workout and take a lap around the compound. After finishing the lap, he went inside to shower, and Naruto changed into his school clothes to get ready. After putting his clothes on, he checked his appearance in the mirror and was pleased with what he saw. Since he had to work on that every morning, his body had no more baby fat, so the fishnet shirt fit him perfectly. He put his kunai holder on his right hand tightly, wrapped the bandages around his ankle, and went downstairs for breakfast before heading out. After spending so much time staring at himself in the mirror, Naruto knew he would be late, so he walked quickly to the academy rather than running to avoid raising suspicions from onlookers. He changed his appearance to resemble the original Naruto as soon as he arrived at the academy in order to ask Sakura out and see if he would be lucky after all that time. When Iruka stopped Naruto as he entered the classroom, the students began to jeer at him. Iruka, using his big, scary head jutsu, yelled, Naruto, where have you been and you're late? Naruto looked at his sensei and remarked, I woke up late. Iruka looked at the boy and asked, where have you been? Iruka. Sensei, it's a secret, Naruto said, sheepishly massaging the back of his head. Please take a seat, Iruka said. Naruto scanned the room, seeing his crush and his friends. He liked Sakura Haruno even though he knew she was Sasuke's fangirl. She beat him up pretty well, but she had no real skills and was book smart. Despite the fact that Sasuke never even bothered to acknowledge her, she did not like him at all and thought he was superior to all the other boys in the class. Although Ino was also a fangirl, she was somewhat talented. She was very bossy and cruel to Naruto, but not to Sakura. Since Shikamaru knew his secret and kept it to himself, he became one of Naruto's closest friends. As far as Naruto was aware, he was the most slothful child on the planet because he consistently received the bare minimum of passing grades on tests, avoiding the need to demonstrate his intelligence and preventing him from being asked to do anything bothersome. Shikamaru was occasionally Naruto's lookout when he pulled practical jokes around the school, and the two of them occasionally skipped class to go observe clouds. After asking Sakura out one more time, he made the decision to sit next to Shikamaru, deciding that he would give up on her if she refused. Naruto blushed as he said, Sakura-chan. Gazing at him, Sakura yelled, what baka? Naruto grinned at her and said, I was wondering if you wanted to go on a date with me. Sakura yelled, hell no baka, and punched him back to the closest wall. Everyone knew that no academy student should have that much energy, but Naruto stopped suppressing his chakra because he wasn't paying attention at the time and dropped the transformation jutsu in a puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared, everyone turned to look at Naruto to see what had happened. They were shocked to see a taller Naruto with longer, wilder hair, wearing black shinobi pants, a bandage covering his ankle, and a toned body underneath the shirt. Before fainting, Hinata began to flush. She was about to collapse on the ground as she stood up, but Iruka saved her. Shikamaru, who had seen Naruto in the Hokage's office the day before, was not shocked when he sat down by the boys in the back and began talking to him. What's up, Shikamaru? Naruto asked, glancing at his friend. Why did you do that? Shikamaru inquired, glancing at his companion. Naruto looked at his friend and laughed, I wanted to ask her out one last time. Last time, Shoji uttered while munching on his chips. Naruto looked at the older boy and said, yeah, I realized that she doesn't like me, so I won't waste my time with her. I can't believe I thought she was cute, look at that forehead, Naruto said, laughing loudly enough for her to hear. Since Naruto was the only person who never made fun of her appearance, Sakura relished the attention she was receiving from him, but she started crying because she was focusing all of her attention on Sasuke. Sakura thought angrily, what the hell happened to Naruto? He wants me to kick his butt again. Sakura stood up and approached Naruto, expecting him to quickly apologize when he saw her face. Naruto, having learned from his sensei Jiraiya, sensed her approach. While the other boys were laughing, he stood up and turned to smile at her. Mizuki was smirking at the situation because he saw it as a chance to beat the demon brat up once more. Sakura, bright red with rage, demanded, Baka, please apologize to me now. But Sakura-chan, Naruto begged, giggling. Sakura shouted, now Baka, and glared at him. Naruto said gravely, I don't think so, your forehead is big right. Sakura shouted, apologize Baka, while glaring at the boy. Naruto sat down and said, okay, I'm sorry your forehead is so big. Sakura swore at the boy, do you want me to beat you up again? Mizuki got up from his seat and said, class, it's time for our taijutsu practice. As everyone headed outside for the day's taijutsu practice, Sakura grinned because she knew she would be picking up Naruto and would finally have another opportunity to win over her beloved Sasuke-kun. Knowing that Sakura was thinking that he was still unable to move correctly and that he was a simple target, as they had been the last time they had fought, Naruto was grinning. Knowing that he had another victim, Sasuke grinned. He wanted to fight Naruto to prove that he was still superior to the other students in the class after he entered the room. Mizuki grinned and said, Naruto versus Sakura, you two, please step up. Sakura walked smirkingly toward the center of the academy training ground and said, I will get you Baka. Are you both ready? Mizuki inquired, glancing at Sakura. Sakura replied, yes, adopting the academy's taijutsu style. With a nod, Naruto adopted the manner Jiraiya had taught him at the compound. Mizuki looked at Naruto and said, go. I didn't teach him that, Mizuki thought, glaring at the boy. Sakura ran toward Naruto, just like she did in the first fight, and yelled, "Here I come, Baka." Naruto stepped out of the way of the punch she threw at him and said, "Same move." Naruto simply leapt out of the way by leaping into the air, flipping back, and landing on both feet when Sakura delivered another punch. Sakura kicked him and then punched the boy, but Naruto was avoiding them and she lost her balance, landing flat on her face. Sasuke was staring at him angrily because Naruto wasn't that good the last time, and he had to test himself against him if he got better. Sakura got up, picked herself up, and became enraged because she couldn't hit the boy she had just promised to kick him in the ass. She tried a kick and punch combo, but Naruto easily dodged each one of them with some slow movements. Sakura crashed to the ground with some blood leaking from her mouth after Naruto decided to end the fight and kicked her in the torso with an axe. Now that her inner self was screaming, she got up and ran across the training field to punch Naruto. He got up and brushed himself off, but she was already in front of him, prepared to beat him to the ground. She threw a punch at him, but Naruto shot back, saying, "Kawarimi no jutsu," replacement jutsu, and replaced himself with a log that was totally destroyed. Sakura ran toward Naruto as he emerged from behind a tree and grinned at the girl, but he vanished in an instant, and Sakura struck only the tree. Naruto appeared behind her and remarked, "Looks like I have to get serious, huh?" Sakura yelled, "Come here, Naruto, so I can kick your ass." She charged at him once more, aiming a punch at his face, but he dodged and punched her in the stomach, causing some blood to flow from her mouth. She retreated, and Naruto stood up, kneeing her in the stomach before striking her in the nose, instantly knocking her unconscious. Iruka grinned at the boy and said, "Winner Uzumaki Naruto. Who taught you this taijutsu style, Naruto?" Mizuki asked, feigning a smile. Naruto looked back at the man and lied, saying, "I learned it myself." Mizuki yelled, "You lying," as she looked at him. Naruto asked him, glancing at him, "Why does it matter to you?" With the exception of Naruto, who was working on his own project in the back, everyone continued to practice the academy style after Shikamaru gave up against Sasuke, Kiba defeated Ino, and Shino defeated Choji. After practicing taijutsu, the class moved on to throwing, and since Naruto had been practicing with his godfather there for the previous week, everyone was fairly accurate. Shikamaru, however, didn't even try, claiming that it was a drag. When it was time to return to the classroom for the history portion of the lesson, Naruto was listening intently despite his head being unable to focus because Iruka had made the explanation particularly dull. Shikamaru was sound asleep next to him, and he followed his head and dozed off on the desk next to Shikamaku. When the bell rang, they realized it was lunchtime. The boys had a special spot to eat, which was on the academy's roof, away from the girls. Shino was even on the roof during lunchtime. Sasuke was the only boy not there because he preferred to be by himself. Kiba remained in the academy's courtyard today, hoping to get Hinata to play. They proceeded to the top of the building, where Shikamaru immediately assumed his cloud, watching stance. With a kunai in hand, Naruto said, "Guys, I want you to meet somebody." Laughing, Shikamaru said, "You're not going to kill us, are you?" "No, idiot," Naruto said, cutting his finger slightly to extract blood. He then applied the blood to his right hand and performed a few fast hand seals before uttering the words, "Gamma Kachiyose no Jutsu," Toad summoning jutsu, and calling forth two small toads in a cloud of smoke. Gazing at the boy, Gamakichi asked, "What do you want, kid?" Gazing at the two small toads who were laughing, Choji exclaimed, "What the hell, talking frogs?" Gamakichi glared at the boy and yelled, "We're toads, you jerk." Naruto looked at them and said, "Anyway, you guys have to keep quiet about this." "Sure," Shino said in his monotone voice as usual. "Who is this brother?" Gamatatsu inquired, glancing at Naruto. With a glance at the boy, Gamatatsu asked, "Do you have some candy?" Naruto took 5 pieces of candy out of his pocket and handed them to them. Gamakichi ate a piece of candy and said, "You know what, I like you, kid." Naruto pointed to Shikamaru, who was lying on his back and staring up at the sky, and said, "Gamakichi, this is Shikamaru, the laziest kid in the world." Gamakichi said, "What's up?" to Shikamaru. Without glancing at the small toad, Shikamaru waved and said, "Hey." Naruto pointed first to Shino and then to Choji, saying, "This is Shino and that is Choji. This is Jiraiya." Sitting outside the hot spring, Jiraiya was grinning broadly as he jotted down the notes for his upcoming pornographic novel in his small notebook. He truly missed conducting his research, but he was now unable to do so as frequently as he would have liked because he needed to teach Naruto self-defense before departing for his meeting with his spies. He had to let Naruto have fun before putting him in the deadly life of a ninja now that he knew Madara was still alive and that he had participated in the Kyuubi attack. After completing his research, Jiraiya unexpectedly found himself in the realm of toad summoning, where he completed his sage training. Pa, a small, elderly toad, asked, "Jiraiya, who is that kid you let sign the contract?" "He's my new student, Naruto," Jiraiya said, grinning as she looked at Pa, who patted him on the head with his cane. Pa looked at him and asked, "Who is he?" "Minato's son, sir," Jiraiya remarked while massaging the large lump on his head. Ma looked at the man and said, "You mean your godson?" "Yes, ma'am," replied Jiraiya, who didn't want to be struck again. Pa looked at the man and said, "That's why we summoned you here. But I wanted to talk to you guys. I want to finish mastering my sage training while the kid is in school. There is a very powerful man that I just found out that might be alive," Jiraiya seriously replied. Pa asked, laughing as he looked at him, "Okay, when do you want to finish it?" Jiraiya looked at the two toad sages and said, "We start tomorrow." "All right, prepare to go to hell once more," Pa chuckled as he glanced at Jiraiya. Returning with Naruto, it was time for them to return to class, but Naruto, Shino, Choji, Shikamaru, Gamakichi, and Gamatatsu were still lounging on the academy's roof. After sending Gamakichi and Gamatatsu home, Naruto went down. When they returned to the academy's playing field, Sasuke was searching for Naruto and wanted to fight him before they had to leave for class. "Hey Dobi, fight me," Sasuke commanded, glancing at the boy. Naruto looked at him and said, Don't feel like it." Sakura, wearing a bandage over her nose, yelled, "Don't insult Sasuke-kun baka," and all the Uchiha fangirls joined her in their greed. Naruto looked at Sakura and said, "Shut up," using his superior Uchiha's "are better than you tone," Sasuke said. "I said fight me, or are you scared?" "Sure," Naruto replied as he assumed the fox taijutsu stance. They faced one another as Sasuke adopted his family manner. Sakura said, heart in her eyes, "You see, Ino.pig Sasuke.kun is fighting for my honor." Sasuke looked at the girl and said, "As if, but Sasuke.kun." Sakura stammered as she spoke. With an Akamaru bark, Kiba yelled, "Kick his ass Naruto." Fangirls yelled, "That baka can't beat Sasuke.kun." Sasuke ran toward him and performed some hand seals, saying, "I'm fighting him to prove that I'm better than him." Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. Fire style. Grand Fireball Jutsu, he said, as a large fireball shot out of his mouth and headed directly for Naruto. Kawarimi no Jutsu. Replacement Jutsu, Naruto said before replacing himself with a log. Sasuke turned around and punched Naruto in the face and then in the stomach, sending him a few feet back and causing all the fangirls to scream. Naruto got up and picked himself up after the log burned down and he appeared behind Sasuke grinning. To prepare for Sasuke, Naruto leapt into the air and flipped backwards. He then charged at him with a barrage of punches and kicks, but this time Naruto dodged and blocked them all. Finally, he punched him in the face and kicked him in the ribs, knocking him down while all the fangirls yelled at him and some of them even threatened to join the fight. After saying, "Kaden, Housenka no Jutsu. Fire style. Mythical Fire Phoenix Jutsu," he stood up and began performing some hand seals. As everyone leapt out of his way, a number of fireballs shot out of his mouth in Naruto's direction. Naruto used his speed to dodge the fireballs and move in front of Sasuke, who then kicked him in the stomach, punched him in the chest, and sent him flying with a strong kick. After flipping in midair and landing on his feet with blood on the side of his lips, Sasuke charged at Naruto, his rage building. He punched the yellow-headed boy, but Naruto dodged him before he could sweep beneath him, sending the Uchiha flying. Sasuke was about to land a kick at Naruto's head, but Naruto kicked it away with a kick of his own. After falling to his feet, Sasuke punched Naruto in the face, causing some blood to trickle from the yellow-haired boy's mouth. Iruka shouted, "Stop it, you two," separating them. "I had to kick his ass because he wanted to fight," Naruto chuckled. Kiba patted him on the back and said, "Naruto, you totally owned him there, bro." Sakura glared at Naruto and yelled, "Sasuke won, you idiot." Naruto looked at the girl and laughed, whatever forehead. Hinata stuttered, G. 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 Good job NN. N. N. Naruto.kun, as she looked at her feet and played with her fingers. Naruto grinned and said, "Thank you, Hinata," to the girl. Looking at Naruto, Ino thought, It's unbelievable that Naruto defeated Sasuke, the best student in our class." With a broad smile on his face, Naruto began to leave to join his friends. He had finally accomplished his goal of proving himself to the class. Now, he only needed to prove himself to the village by becoming Hokage. His name was called by the group of fangirls. With the exception of Ino, all of the fangirls were staring at him with dagger-like intensity when he turned around. Ino continued to stand where she had been cheering for Sasuke before Naruto defeated him. She had convinced herself that no one in the academy could defeat her beloved Sasuke-kun in combat, so seeing what she thought was impossible occur in front of her made her question what she saw in Sasuke. When Ino noticed the fangirls becoming irate, she was finally jolted out of her phase. "You must apologize to Sasuke-kun immediately," yelled Sakura, the fangirl leader. Naruto said, "I wish I could, but I can't," as he turned to leave. Sakura walked toward Naruto with the other fangirls following her, shouting, "Come back here and apologize to Sasuke-kun baka." Naruto halted and turned to face the fangirls, saying, "Hell no." Then, Sakura said, cracking her knuckles, "We'll just make you." Naruto looked at them and laughed. "I thought the Teme was supposed to be the strongest in the village, now you want revenge because the dead last beat him." Sakura snapped, glaring at him. "Shut up." With one of his phony smiles, Naruto said, "Touch me and you'll regret it," focusing all of his murderous intent on them as Jiraiya had taught him to do. Since the girls were only academy students and Naruto's chakra was enormous, it was a little difficult for them to stand up straight. As instructed by Jiraiya, Naruto once more repressed his chakra. Sakura yelled, "You will apologize to Sasuke-kun," as she rose from the floor. As Ino approached the girl, he yelled, "Forehead, just shut up." Sakura looked at Ino and yelled, "What are you supporting him?" As Ino left the group, he yelled, "I'm not siding with anybody, Sasuke lost, and you don't see him asking for an apology. That's why he don't talk to us, I just realized that. You're annoying." Sakura grinned and turned to face the girl's back, saying, "You are no longer in the running for Sasuke-kun's affections." Then Ino.Pig. "Whatever," Ino said as he entered the academy. Sakura turned to face Naruto, but he and the other boys had already left. Naruto had long since left with Kiba, Choji, Shikamaru, Shino, and Hinata. They went to the academy's roof and simply lay there while Shikamaru gazed at the clouds. Naruto knew that he had to return home at 4:30 to prepare for his training, but he was still making the most of his brief time with his friends. With Jiraiya and the Hokage to take care of him, Naruto was content with his new life and didn't worry about the villagers. He saw them as his family, and that was all he wanted of friends and family. They stayed on the roof until the academy bell rang, signaling that it was time to leave. They neglected to come back to class after lunch, and Iruka was going to be upset with them the following day. Naruto grinned and said, "Guys who have to go home and train." Hinata stammered, M.M.M.Me, as she got ready to leave for home. Kiba jumped off the roof and headed for his house, saying, "I have to do physical workout with my mom. See you tomorrow." Hinata, Naruto grinned as he gazed at the girl. Naruto said as he got up, "Let's just hang out, then I can show you guys my house." "Whatever," Shikamaru said as she got up, "My mom is going to be on my ass anyway if I go home right now." Choji asked, glancing at them, "Where are we going?" Naruto looked at them gravely and said, "We can come to my house, but you guys have to promise not to tell anybody that doesn't know." Choji and Shikamaru said, "Sure," as they passed in front of them, and Shino simply nodded. The boys leapt from the roof of the academy and began walking toward the Hyuga compound. Shikamaru spoke up as they passed the Hyuga compound. "Why are we heading toward the Hyuga compound when you mentioned that we were going to your house?" Shikamaru asked, glancing at the boy. As Naruto passed the Hyuga compound, he remarked, "I live next to the Hyugas." When they arrived at the gate of the Hyugas' compound, they were all taken aback to discover that Naruto shared a large family compound with them. They could hear his bugs, but Shino didn't show that he was surprised. They all walked him after Naruto used the key Jiraiya gave him to open the gates. They gazed in wonder and awe at everything as soon as they entered, including the lovely garden in front. Choji ate his chips, bag after bag, faster and faster, while observing everything. "Dude," Choji said, glancing at his friend, "you live here alone, since when?" "Not long ago, and I live here with my godfather," Naruto remarked, massaging the back of his head. Gazing at them, Naruto said, "Let me show you guys the lake in the back." They strolled along the compound's street, which had homes and shops on either side, giving the impression that it was a miniature village. They arrived at the training area at the rear of the compound, which also had a lake with a dock and other amenities. When Naruto leapt onto the water and began to run, all of the boys were staring at him with wide, open eyes. As he finished his last bag of potato chips, Choji asked, "How did you do that? As you look at them, you know about chakra control, right?" Naruto asked. "Yeah, it's a drag learning it," Shikamaru remarked, casting a bored glance at his friend. Naruto looked at his friends and asked, "Can you do any chakra control?" Shino looked at him and said, "No, my dad didn't start with that yet." "No," Choji said, glancing at him. Shikamaru sat on the dock and gazed out at the lake, saying, "I don't want to." Knowing that the boy enjoyed playing shogi, Naruto grinned and said, "If you do that, I will play shogi with you every time I have some free time." "What do we do?" Choji asked, glancing at him. Naruto got out of the water to demonstrate to them. "Just walk up a tree by flowing some chakra to the bottom of your feet." Shikamaru was the first to get up and attempt climbing the tree, and he did so with ease. He came to the conclusion that you can't use too much chakra or, for that matter, too little as soon as he saw Naruto ascend the tree. On his fifth attempt, he managed to reach the top of the tree and returned to his dock seat, where he gazed out over the lake. Jiraiya would be home any moment now to begin his daily training, so it was time for them to head home. Naruto supported them and encouraged them when they began to falter during the chakra control exercise. Naruto rubbed the back of his head and said, "Let me tell you guys something. Gigi Sensei told me, when you run up and down the tree for a long time and do it every day, your chakra will start to grow." As Choji walked out the gates, he said, "I will do that." Shino said, "Thank you, Naruto-san," behind Choji. Shikamaru, looking bored, said, "See you tomorrow, Naruto. You know that you're a troublesome blonde." After shutting the gates, Naruto hurried back inside and put on another pair of black pants he had begun wearing for training. "I'll see you guys tomorrow," he said. He returned to the training area and began stretching in preparation for his sensei's arrival. Jiraiya emerged in a cloud of smoke in the center of the training area and observed Naruto stretching. "What's up, sensei?" Naruto asked, grinning at his sensei. "How was school?" Jiraiya asked as she approached the boy. "They engaged in combat with the same girl who assaulted me," Naruto chuckled. "And," Jiraiya said, anticipating the conclusion, "I won. Then I introduced Gamakichi and Gamatatsu to Shikamaru and some of my most trusted friends. We chilled for some time and forgot to go back to class. When I was about to go to class, Sasuke asked me for a fight and I totally kicked his ass," laughed Naruto. Grinning at his godson, Jiraiya said, "You mean the Uchiha?" Before explaining the entire battle to his sensei, Naruto remarked, "Yeah, and he knows some fire jutsus too." According to Jiraiya, who was observing him, "I told you the Academy 3 was useful." Jiraiya said, removing his top, "All right, Gaki, calling training." "All right," Naruto said, bouncing up and down. Jiraiya looked at the child and said, "Okay, Naruto, you can use Toad for almost anything like sending messages, chilling out, and there are big combat toads." Naruto smiled and asked, "Are there like little ones or a jutsu to summon a bunch of small frogs?" "What do you have in mind?" Jiraiya asked, smiling as well. Naruto looked at his sensei and laughed, "I need to teach the girls in school a lesson." "I like your style, kid, but you have to put enough chakra for hundreds of small toads and summon them," Jiraiya chuckled. As Jiraiya vanished in a cloud of smoke, she said, "Work on it until you get, then come find me. Send me a message with a messenger toad." "I know who can help me," Naruto said, drawing blood with his thumb before performing the hand seals and calling forth 2 tiny toads, each of whom was dressed in a blue jacket, using the phrase, "Kachiyose no Jutsu," summoning jutsu. Although the candy had nothing to do with it, it did help, and Gamakichi and Gamatatsu were pleased that he had called them back because they already liked him. Kyuubi said, "Hey kid," via their mind link. Naruto jumped into a defensive stance and questioned, "Who the hell said that?" The Demon Lord said, "It's me, Kyuubi, and I can communicate with you via our mind link." Before beginning his new jutsu, Naruto paused and said, "Oh, what is it?" The Demon Lord asked, "Do you know how the Sharingan copy or predict people's moves?" "They do it by reading a person's mind with their Sharingan by looking in the person's eyes, that's why they all know Genjutsu," the Demon Lord replied. "So they can read people's minds?" a slightly anxious Naruto inquired. "Is there any way to stop them from reading your mind?" asked Naruto, who was still honing his jutsu. "Anybody else would fight them without looking in their eyes, but since I can't mess with your DNA by giving you the Sharingan, I'll give a counter to the Sharingan. It won't block your mind so that you're the only one who can access it, it's going to be your eyes, the Demon Lord replied. Naruto said, growing more anxious, you're not going to change my eyes, are you? No, I fixed them so anytime Uchiha try to read your mind or cast a genjutsu on you, it won't work. Matter of fact, you won't get caught on any genjutsu, it don't matter how powerful it is. Your eyes will still remain the same, the Demon Lord replied. As he exited the mind link, the Demon Lord said, talk to you later, I'm going to sleep. Having Sasuke around. While practicing his jutsu in his clan training ground, Sasuke read a scroll about additional fire jutsus and practiced them in order to defeat Naruto in their next battle. Unbeknownst to him, a man wearing a white coat and an Anbi mask leapt out of the clearing and stood across from the lonesome Uchiha. Sasuke gave the Anbu member a fierce look before ceasing to practice. What do you want? Sasuke asked. The Anbu member looked at him and said, I was sent here to help you. As he left the man, Sasuke said, I don't need your help and get out of my house. The Anbu member remarked, but the dead last of the academy did manage to beat you. Shut up, Sasuke said as he ran toward the man. He threw a punch, but the Anbu member easily dodged it, then kicked him away after punching him in the stomach. The Anbu member then leapt into the air and threw multiple kunais at him, injuring him. He hurled a kunai once more, but Sasuke ducked and collapsed to the ground, unconscious. After picking him up, the Anbu member fled the compound, accompanied by him on his way to the hospital. When he dropped him in front of the hospital, he was unaware that Sarutobi had seen everything that had happened. He sent 2 of his best Anbu to tend to the root member, but before he could report to his master, he found himself restrained by some tree roots. Then, he heard 1,000 birds screeching, and the Anbu in the dog mask ran toward him at full speed. When he reached him, he said, Raikiri, lightning blade, and slashed the man's heart to death. After destroying the body, they departed to inform the Hokage. Sasuke received prompt medical attention from the nurses, who advised him to rest because his wounds had fully healed and he could leave this afternoon. When Sasuke felt something in his eyes, he asked the nurse for a mirror so he could see what was wrong. The nurse smiled and gave him one, and when he looked in it, he saw that his eyes were still the same. He applied some chakra to his eyes to see if his Sharingan was activated, and he was right. He saw his Sharingan with one tomo in his eye. He grinned and said he would train, go home, and beat Naruto the following day because the dead last could not defeat him now that he had the Sharingan. Sasuke was pleased that his eyes had opened and that he would now confront Naruto for making fun of him in front of the class. Naruto. After performing the hand seals and attempting the jutsu once more, Naruto realized that he had run out of chakra because he had created all the clones to summon various types of toads in the previous hour and had committed the names of the creatures to memory along with their uses. Before Naruto destroyed them all and sent the tiny frogs home, one of the clones did succeed in obtaining the jutsu. Naruto said, go get Jiraiya for me, Gamakichi, Gamatatsu, tell him I'm done, before collapsing to the ground. Because they had a blood contract with the Toad Sage and knew his location at all times, the young toads leapt out of the compound and headed for the hot springs. Since it was his last opportunity to conduct thorough research for his new training and to train the boy as well, Jiraiya was occupied with observing the women in the bathhouse and taking notes on his notepad. He was giggling, and since he was a spy master and very good at being undetected, no one in the bathhouse even noticed him. Sensing the tiny toads approaching, Jiraiya got up and put his notepad away. After his father had told him about his summoner, the Toad Sage, Gamakichi and Gamatatsu arrived and saw Jiraiya emerging from the bush. They knew what he was doing. Gamakichi looked at the man and remarked, Naruto said that he's done. Jiraiya pointed to his shoulder and said, so, he summoned you guys to help him, let's go. They each got on one shoulder and vanished, leaving a trail of leaves in their wake. With the 2 small toads perched on his shoulders, Jiraiya emerged onto the training field. In order to replenish the chakra he used for the jutsu, Naruto's chakra was in reloading mode. Jiraiya pulled out an empty scroll and some writing paper and said, Gaki, let me make you a new training schedule. You have too much time for taijutsu since you already know the one that I taught you. You'll be using that new schedule starting next week. Alright, I'll finally get some ninjutsu, Naruto exclaimed, leaping with joy. Monday from 5:30 to 6 a.m. Exercise speed training from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning. Between 7 o'clock and 7:55 a.m., eat and prepare for school. Academy hours are 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch is from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Between 1:30 and 7 p.m., ninjutsu 7 o'clock a.m. Practice dodging. Between 8 o'clock and 10 p.m., meditation Tuesday. From 5:30 to 6 a.m. Exercise taijutsu training from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning. Between 7 o'clock and 7:55 a.m., eat and prepare for school. Academy hours are 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch is from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Between 1:30 and 7 p.m., ninjutsu. 7 o'clock to 8 p.m., practice for the goal. Between 8 o'clock and 10 p.m., meditation Wednesday. From 5:30 to 6 a.m. Exercise speed training from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning. Between 7 o'clock and 7:55 a.m., eat and prepare for school. Academy hours are 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch is from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Between 1:30 and 7 p.m., ninjutsu 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. Practice dodging. Between 8 o'clock and 10 p.m., meditation Thursday. From 5:30 to 6 a.m. Exercise taijutsu training from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning. Between 7 o'clock and 7:55 a.m., eat and prepare for school. Academy hours are 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch is from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Between 1:30 and 7 p.m., ninjutsu 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. Practice for the goal. Between 8 o'clock and 10 p.m., meditation Friday. From 5:30 to 6 a.m. Exercise speed training from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning. Between 7 o'clock and 7:55 a.m., eat and prepare for school. Academy hours are 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch is from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Between 1:30 and 7 p.m., ninjutsu 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. Practice dodging. Between 8 o'clock and 10 p.m., meditation on Saturday. From 5:30 to 6 a.m. Exercise speed training from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning. Eat between 7 o'clock and 7:30 a.m. Friends from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Lunch is from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Seals from 1:30 to 7 p.m. Practice dodging and targeting from 7 o'clock to 9 p.m. Meditation from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Exercise, target practice, and dodging. Take the rest of the day off. Jiraiya threw him the scroll and said, "Okay, Gaki, you know what to do now." Since Jiraiya had boosted the gravity to help him control his newfound speed and to strengthen his body during the physical workout, Naruto grabbed the scroll, put it in his pocket, and began running slowly around the compound. Since he hadn't trained in a while and now had to finish his sage training, he ran around the compound repeatedly before Jiraiya made the decision to join him in order to get back in shape. He knew that Pa wouldn't be kind to him. He was enjoying running alongside his student, seeing Minato in the boy every time he looked at him, and they ran around the compound while he had a gravity seal on his body similar to Naruto's. Alongside Sasuke. Despite the fact that he would only learn from scrolls because he was still in the academy and had no family in the village, Sasuke had returned home with his wounds healed and was ready to begin training to become accustomed to his Sharingan. There was no one in the village that he knew who could assist him with the Sharingan. Sasuke entered the Uchiha library and took a scroll that contained instructions on how to use the Sharingan correctly. He sat down and read the scroll, learning that in order for the Sharingan to remain active, chakra must continuously flow to his eyes and that it would not function if there was insufficient chakra. Sasuke pulled out another Genjutsu scroll, but he was unable to fully comprehend it. He decided to put it off until he had another sensei. As soon as possible, Sasuke hoped to use his Sharingan in combat to thoroughly defeat Naruto. Sasuke removed a scroll that dealt with chakra control, but he decided against it because he needed to learn more jutsus and it wasn't really necessary in combat. He then proceeded to master the fire jutsus he was already familiar with. Sasuke became enraged and yelled, "I will beat you Dobi, because no one can stand up to the Sharingan." Alongside Naruto, Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Naruto, I need to see if your chakra control is ready for the kind of training we're going to do." Naruto looked at his sensei and declared, "I have mastered both the tree climbing and the water walking. Naruto, there a jutsu that I'm going to teach, not everyone can perform it because you got to have a contract with the toads to be able to perform it." Jiraiya replied with a serious expression. "What is it?" Naruto asked, glancing nervously at his sensei. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Let's go to the toad's house to get you some oil." Jiraiya looked at the two small toads and said, "Gamakichi, Gamatatsu, please go back and tell Pa to summon myself and Naruto." Gamakichi and Gamatatsu said, "Okay," and vanished in a cloud of smoke. After a few minutes, Jiraiya and Naruto vanished in a cloud of smoke and resurfaced beneath the largest tree Naruto had ever seen. This surprised him because he had never seen a tree this large. Before Gamakichi and Gamatatsu leapt in front of him, Naruto was staring around with his mouth hanging open. "Where are we?" asked Naruto, who continued to scan the area. Gamakichi looked at the boy and said, "This is where I live and where the Toad family lives." "What is it that you want, Jiraiya?" asked Pa, glancing at the man before him. Jiraiya looked fearfully at the elderly Toad and said, "I just wanted to give him some oil. I'm going to teach the Toad oil jutsu." He didn't want to be struck by the cane the little Toad was carrying. Jiraiya. "Sensei, why are you afraid of that little Toad?" Naruto asked, laughing as he looked at the Toad sage. What he didn't anticipate was being struck in the head by the little Toad's cane, landing on the ground with a large lump on his head. Jiraiya looked at the boy on the ground and whispered, "Brat, you better keep your mouth shut." Naruto moved behind his sensei and whispered, "You're right, sensei." "What is your name, kid?" asked Pa, glancing at the boy. From behind his sensei, Naruto uttered, You, Zumaki Naruto, Mr. Toad, sir." Pa looked at the boy and said, "My name is Pa, and I am one of the sages of the Toad." Behind Pa, a group of large toads emerged, accompanied by an elderly female toad. Pa pointed to the large toad with the sword at his waist and said, "Naruto, this is Ma, the other sage of the toads. My sons Gamabunda the boss summon." Naruto looked up to see the large toad's face and said, "Hey, you were in the fight with the 4th Hokage against the Kyuubi. Just wait, when Gamakichi and Gamadatsu get big, we're going to beat you in Jiji. Sensei. Isn't that right, Kichi, Tatsu?" Gamakichi looked at his father and yelled, "Yeah." Gamabunda laughed and said, "Is that right?" Gazing at the young child, Gamabunda thought, he really is his son. "Believe it," Naruto said, glancing at Toad, the boss. With 2 swords on his back in the shape of a X, Pa pointed to the Toad and said, "This is Gamaken, my other son." Naruto shouted, "What's up?" so the large toad could hear him. Gamaken said, "Hello Naruto," and the other toads laughed. Pa pointed to the toad holding a shield and said, "And that is Gamahiko." "Hello Naruto," Gamahiko said, glancing at the boy who was giggling. After chatting with the toads and playing with the smaller ones, Naruto gained their affection because he was so kind and laid back. While Jiraiya was drinking with the large toads, Naruto played with them, and they all laughed and enjoyed themselves. Jiraiya handed Naruto a large cup of oil and said, "Come, Naruto, and drink this." Naruto complained, glancing at his sensei, "What do I have to drink all of this?" "Yes," Jiraiya replied, glancing at him with laughter. With a strange expression on his face, Naruto drank the entire cup of oil. When he was done, he gave Jiraiya the cup back and sat on the ground, holding his hand to his mouth. When Jiraiya stood up and turned to face Pa, the elderly toad realized it was time to go back to the human world. Since they always visited the old man, Jiraiya and Naruto went inside the house and showered in preparation for their visit to the Hokage's office. After getting dressed, Naruto waited for Jiraiya to join him at the Hokage tower. Jiraiya arrived downstairs wearing only his home clothes, a shirt, and some pants. He was not wearing his forehead protector or the large scroll he was required to carry. He was wearing a fishnet shirt underneath a white shirt and black pants. As they were strolling through the streets, Naruto turned to face his sensei and remarked, "Jiji. Sensei, Kyuubi made some adjustments to my eyes." "What do you mean by some adjustments?" Jiraiya asked cautiously. "I will never fall for genjutsu, and he said that it was the counter to the Sharingan because they will not be able to copy my jutsus or predict my move," said Naruto as he looked at his sensei. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "That's good with Madara around and everything." Kyuubi awoke in Naruto's mind and said, "Tell him, if he comes to your mindscape I can do the same for him." "All right," Naruto said, continuing to walk alongside his godfather. Naruto grinned as he looked at his sensei and said, "Sensei, Kyuubi told me that he can the same for you." "You still need to meditate when we get back to the house," Jiraiya said, continuing to walk and observe everything. "What?" Naruto asked, glancing at his sensei. "Yes, you must meditate every day," Jiraiya said, giggling at his pupil. Naruto and his sensei laughed and said, all right." Finally, they arrived at the Hokage tower and entered through the window. The third was happy to see them because he had been working on a lot of paperwork all day and was getting really bored. He thought the paperwork was playing tricks on him because each time he finished one pile, another one appeared. Since he was the first in line for the position, he knew Jiraiya didn't want it, but he gave it to his student anyway, and now that he had to train Naruto, he wouldn't accept the job again. He really needed to retire. Jiraiya would much rather travel the continent conducting research and having fun than sit around doing paperwork. Since he was the only one entering the office through the window and he could feel Jiraiya approaching, Sarutobi asked, "Jiraiya, what brings you here?" Without even turning to look back, Jiraiya laughed as he glanced at his former sensei. "Just dropped by to see you, sensei. See, you're still doing paperwork, huh?" "Hey, Gramps," Naruto said, massaging the back of his head. Looking at the boy, Sarutobi said, "Hey there, Naruto." The Hokage looked at the boy and asked, "How is the academy?" Naruto looked at the man he thought of as his grandfather and said, "It's okay." Jiraiya said, "Sensei, I came to talk to you about something," and Sarutobi was prepared with the appropriate response. Jiraiya walked toward the window and said, "I'll see you back at the compound." Naruto walked toward the window and said, "Gigi. Sensei, can't he just use the shadow clones to do all that paperwork?" To avoid witnessing Sarutobi repeatedly banging his head against the desk, they leapt out of the window. Sarutobi slammed his head against the desk and asked, "Why didn't I think of that?" Sarutobi cried as he looked at all the paperwork, remembering all the time he could have spent with his family. All those years of doing paperwork. In order to complete the paperwork for the evening, Sarutobi created 3 shadow clones and said, "Thank you, Naruto." The Namikaze compound. The yellowhead realized he needed to go meditate while his sensei spoke to the Hokage after Jiraiya and Naruto arrived at the compound. When they arrived at the small lake at the rear of the compound, he followed Jiraiya to meditate. Jiraiya instructed Naruto to undress, and he complied with his sensei's instructions. Jiraiya looked at Naruto and said, "Now, all you have to do is sit on the water to meditate." Looking at his sensei, Naruto yelled, "What?" Jiraiya said, "You heard, come inside when you're finished," as she turned to leave the child. Naruto only flowed chakra to his feet, so as soon as he attempted to sit on the water, he began to sink. He sat on the lake, closed his eyes, and felt everything around him after getting into the water and applying some chakra to his legs and butt. Inside the house, he could feel Jiraiya and Sarutobi's chakra, hear the birds chirping, and feel the wind against his skin. When he saw the Hyugas in the next compound, his mind was simply clear. Jiraiya looked at the elderly man gravely and said, "Sensei, I just learned that Uchiha Madara was the one who called for the fox to attack the village." Sarutobi asked, "Are you sure?" as he observed his pupil sipping some tea that Jiraiya had prepared. Jiraiya looked at the elderly man and said, "Yeah, the fox said it himself." "That makes things more difficult," Sarutobi remarked, glancing at his pupil. Jiraiya looked at the elderly man and said, "I have to go away for a few months to learn more about it after Naruto graduates the academy." "That's a good idea," Sarutobi said, grinning at his former pupil. Jiraiya looked at his sensei and said, "Before I depart, I will teach him combination jutsus with the toads. That will help him not fight alone, plus he got teammates like Shikamaru, Shino, Choji, and Kiba who got his back. I saw him teach them the tree climbing earlier today," said Sarutobi with a grin on his face. Jiraiya grinned and remarked, "He is a good kid, just like his father." "Of course," smiled Sarutobi. "I think you should leave, because the sooner you leave the sooner you can come back to take over his training. He got 2 years left in the academy, maybe you can leave in 5 months or so and you can spend a year and a half finding more about the subject, so that you can come back to pick him up from school after he graduates. I think he would like that," said Sarutobi as he looked at his sensei. Jiraiya observed his sensei and remarked, "You were right, I want to be around when he graduates." Jiraiya looked at his sensei and said, "I'll train him and get my training in while he's in school." Jiraiya realized after speaking with Sarutobi that if he wanted to learn more about that Madara thing, he would need to leave the village. Jiraiya went to find Naruto, who was still meditating on the lake after Sarutobi left the compound. Jiraiya brought him inside so he could rest for tomorrow's school day. Because Jiraiya had to drink it while learning with the toads, Naruto's oil remained in his body, enabling him to use the toad oil jutsu. The toad sage now had to complete the sage training because he didn't want his face to become distorted when he transformed. Jiraiya followed Naruto's example and went inside to sleep. He wanted to go to a bar and get a drink to help him decompress, but he was unable to do so because he would be hanged and Pa would kill him during training. Tomorrow. When the alarm went off, Naruto got up and got ready for the day. He went downstairs and headed for the training area, where he discovered Jiraiya already awake and fully clothed in the same clothes he had worn to train Naruto. Because he didn't want to be training at this early stage of the morning, Naruto gave him a nervous look. Naruto looked at his sensei and asked, "Gigi, why are you up so early?" Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, to get some exercise done before training with Pa. Naruto looked at the man and asked, What do you think I do while you're in school? Naruto, follow the schedule one made for you because I'll be back Sunday morning. If I leave while training with Pa, he's going to kill me. Jiraiya replied while examining the child. Naruto said, okay, and was about to go outside. Naruto, when you come from school, summon a toad your size and start trying to get along with him, because when I come back I'm going to teach jutsus to combine with toads. Jiraiya was staring at him. Naruto looked at his sensei and said, huh. As they walked outside toward the training ground, Jiraiya said, let me introduce you to one. After they arrived at the training area, Jiraiya bit his thumb, uttered the word, and conjured up a toad as tall as Naruto. The toad looked at Jiraiya and said, hello Jiraiya. Sama, how can I help you? Jiraiya looked at the toad and said, Gamakino, I'm trying to demonstrate some combination jutsus to Naruto. The toad looked at Jiraiya and said, let's go then. Jiraiya looked at the boy and remarked, the key is Naruto's ability to work with the toad and know when to combine your chakra with him. When Jiraiya placed his hand on the toad's back after it had performed some hand seals, they uttered the words, Gama Kanbi no Jutsu. Sweden. Toad combination jutsu. Water bullet. A water ball emerged from the toad's mouth, shattering the practice dummy into a number of tiny fragments. Awesome, Naruto remarked, glancing at his sensei. Gazing at his pupil, Jiraiya explained, my wind chakra gave the water ball a cutting ability, making it more destructive. Jiraiya began working out physically before school, with Naruto beside him. After school, just summon him and he'll show you what to do, and how to combine your chakra, Jiraiya said. After they were done, Naruto went inside to shower before heading to school. After getting dressed and taking a shower, he descended the stairs to find Jiraiya had made some food for them. After finishing his meal, Jiraiya withdrew some cash and gave it to Naruto. Jiraiya said, don't waste it, it's for the entire week, and then he called forth a small messenger toad. Tell Pa, I'm ready. Jiraiya told the young toad. 30 seconds later, Jiraiya vanished into his training in a cloud of smoke. As Naruto left the Hyuga compound and began to head toward the academy, he noticed Hinata making her way to school while holding a box containing her lunch. Naruto passed the boy who had emerged from the compound behind Hinata and was making his way to the academy and approached Hinata to speak with him. Running after the bashful girl, Naruto yelled, hey, Hinata, wait up, because she was in love with Naruto. Hinata became anxious when she turned around and saw him running after her. After catching up to the girl, Naruto stood next to her and began to walk alongside her. Naruto looked at the girl and rubbed the back of his head, saying, hey Hinata, what's up? What should I do? He's so close to me right now, Hinata thought, her face changing color. H. Hey N. Naruto.kun, H. Aoi. Are you doing? Hinata replied, avoiding eye contact with the boy by focusing on her feet. Naruto touched the girl's forehead and asked, Hinata, are you sick? Hinata was still playing with her finger and staring at her feet when she thought, Naruto.kun is touching me. Naruto became anxious and asked, Hinata, are you okay? Hinata continued to stare at her feet as she said, I'm fine. What are you doing around here, Naruto.kun? Naruto pointed to the compound, which was as large as the Hyuga compound, and said, I live next door to you, in that compound over there. Why? Live N. Next to me, Hinata said, becoming even more enraged, which was impossible because she was already turning orange. Considering the prank already, Naruto laughed and said, yeah, you can't tell no one about it though, and try to stay out of the girls' bathroom today at school. Hi, is that Naruto.kun? Hinata asked, continuing to play with her fingers and gaze at her feet. As Naruto looked at the girl and laughed, he said, you'll see, you want to race me to school or I can carry you. Before Naruto picked her up bridal style and began running toward the academy with her, Hinata could only say, but, as quickly as he could, Naruto ran toward the academy while carrying the bashful girl. They arrived there with a broad smile on Hinata's face, which was also flushed. As soon as Naruto put her down, she passed out, but fortunately, Iruka was there to keep her from falling to the ground. With a cute little Hinata in her head, the girl's only thought was, Naruto.kun just carried me to school. With Akamaru on his head, Naruto made his way to the back of the room and sat down next to Shikamaru, Choji, Shino, and Kiba. He then began discussing the day with the guys. Naruto grinned broadly as he said, "Guys, I have the ideal plan set up for today." Given the expression on Naruto's face from their previous practical jokes, Kiba asked, "For whom?" Naruto grinned and said, "The girls, do you remember yesterday? Choji distract Mizuki just talk to him. Shino keep the girls from going toward the bathroom. Kiba keep Iruka Sensei from going out of the room too. And Shikamaru you're coming with me as my lookout. You got it?" asked Naruto as he examined them all. "Yeah," Shikamaru said, glancing at the boy. Kiba looked at the boy and asked, "Why are you the leader?" Naruto looked at the boy and yelled, "Because it was my plan." As Choji looked at Naruto, he said, "Okay, when do we start with the plan?" Naruto laughed and remarked, "They'll want to use the restroom really badly after the physical session outside." When Kiba received a reprimand from Akamaru, he said, "Man, I know this is going to be genius." Naruto looked at Shino and said, "When I'm done, Shino will send a bug to warn you." When everyone had arrived, Iruka began the lesson. Sasuke was sitting in his seat, staring straight ahead, but he was not paying any attention to anything else. Surprisingly, Naruto paid close attention to Iruka's discussion of the village's founders because he wanted to learn as much as he could about Uchiha Madara, who had a grudge against the village. When Iruka began discussing how the first Hokage had vanquished Uchiha Madara in their final battle, Sasuke was furious, though he didn't show it. Because of what had happened the day before, all of the girls were glaring at Naruto and still harbored resentment toward the boy with the yellow hair. Naruto was grinning broadly as he worked through the infallible plan. He stood up and smiled as he approached Sakura. Naruto grinned at Sakura-chan and said, "Hey, do you want to go out with me?" Sakura yelled, as if baka, and punched him in the head. Naruto returned to his seat with a slight sense of sadness because the girl still didn't like him, but he was still grinning because it was his opportunity to exact revenge. Hinata appeared somewhat depressed as well because Sakura consistently turned him down and Naruto never saw her to ask her out. After Iruka completed the first portion of class, it was time for the physical portion of the day. Before lunch, they lined up outside and waited for their opponent. Iruka was telling a lengthy story in class, and Shikamaru was still a little bored, so he sat down. Mizuki said, glancing at them, "First match Nara Shikamaru versus Sakura Haruno." Sakura grinned and walked toward Shikamaru, saying, "Easy. You guys ready?" Mizuki inquired, glancing at them. "Yes," Sakura said. Shikamaru asked, glancing at his teacher, "Do I have to?" "Yes," Mizuki replied, turning to face the boy. "Go," Mizuki exclaimed, leaping back. With the same punch she had used twice against Naruto, Sakura charged at Shikamaru, who simply sidestepped and avoided the blow. After performing a few hand seals, he declared, "Kagemain no Jutsu. Shadow Possession Jutsu," and used the Shadow Possession Jutsu to capture her. He remained in the center of the training area, using the shadow to bring her near the wall. He began punching the air while Sakura was fumbling with her hands and slamming them into the wall. Shikamaru then head-butted the air, and Sakura followed suit, causing her large forehead to bleed. Then, with a smile on her face, Shikamaru forced her to approach Sasuke. As Sakura struggled under the jutsu, she yelled, "What the hell are you doing, Shikamaru?" "Fighting," Shikamaru said with a smile. Sasuke was staring at the boy with his Uchiha's daughter the best expression when Shikamaru positioned Sakura perfectly and shifted his right foot back. The slack-jawed boy kicked the air as Sakura's foot landed squarely on the Uchiha's groin. While all of the fangirls were fretting and freaking out over their beloved Sasuke-kun, Sasuke collapsed on the ground while clutching his nuts. The slack boy then forced Sakura to approach the wall, where she struck her head and passed out. One of the fangirls yelled, "I will kill you, Shikamaru, if Sasuke cannot have children with me." Shikamaru laughed with everyone when he said, "I didn't do anything, it was Sakura." Iruka said, "Winner Nara Shikamaru," as she gazed at the boy. Naruto ran toward the boy and yelled, "Shikamaru, you're a genius." Kiba laughed on the ground and yelled, "Funny as fuck bro." The thing had even made Shino laugh. The boys formed a circle around Naruto and Shikamaru, while all of the fangirls began to approach him while clenching their knuckles. Naruto changed into Shikamaru, and Shikamaru changed into Naruto. However, things did not work out well because they beat the living daylights out of Naruto, and some of the girls were also injured because the boys were defending their friend. Naruto was aware that his transformation jutsu was authentic when he was struck and it continued to work. Iruka wanted to continue the spar, but he knew that a war would erupt again, so he put an end to the full scale conflict between the boys and the fangirls. Iruka looked at them and said, "We are going back inside." Naruto approached the girl and said, "Hinata, I need your help with something." Playing with her fingers, Hinata questioned, "What is Naruto-kun?" Naruto grinned at the girl and said, "Can you use your Byakugan to let the guys know when I'm finished?" "S's. S.U.R." Hinata said, turning to face the boy at last. "Guys now," Naruto said as he made his way to the academy's entrance. "Can you help me with my throwing jutsu, Iruka? Sensei?" Kiba asked as he approached the academy teacher. "Sure, Kiba," Iruka said as they made their way to another training area. "Mizuki. Sensei, could you please help me with my taijutsu?" Choji said as he approached the man. "Sure, come on," Mizuki said as she and the boy walked toward the back. Naruto looked at the boy and said, "Shikamaru, let's go." He was laughing. Naruto jumped in through the window and said, "When I'm done, Shino Hinata will tell you." Shikamaru was standing behind Naruto in the bathroom, laughing, while Shino let all his bugs out and scared the girls in one corner of the training ground out of their dresses. After performing a few hand seals, Naruto uttered the words, "Gamma Kichiyose no Jutsu. Kichi, Tatsu. Toad summoning jutsu. Kichi and Tatsu," and called forth the two small frogs using a summoning jutsu he had created. Gamatatsu leapt on Naruto's shoulder, and Gamakichi leapt on his head. After performing a few more hand seals, Naruto uttered the words, "Kichiyose no Jutsu. Tajugama. Summoning jutsu. Multiple toads," called forth a group of tiny frogs in the restroom, and shut the door. Hinata recognized Naruto's hand gesture as a signal that they were finished. "He's done, Shino-san," Hinata said, glancing at the bug boy. After Kiba, Choji, and the boys fled from the teachers and headed toward the school, Shino sent some of his bugs. With Hinata following him, Shino headed toward the rear of the school, where they were to meet, and all the bugs returned to attack him. Choji and Kiba arrived at the meeting place and waited there while Naruto and Shikamaru were already back there, laughing and waiting to hear all the screaming. The boys began laughing with Kiba on his back, Naruto holding his stomach, Shikamaru holding his stomach, Shino holding his stomach, and Choji holding his stomach. Hinata was just giggling softly as the girls entered the school and began to head for the bathroom. When Ino opened the door, a group of tiny frogs leapt out of the bathroom on all of them, and they began to flee the bathroom screaming. When Iruka and Mizuki arrived at the academy, they noticed all of the tiny frogs bouncing around. Iruka ordered everyone to leave the school because he had no idea where all the frogs were coming from. Iruka was counting the children when he noticed that Naruto, Shikamaru, Choji, Shino, Kiba, and Hinata were not in his class. All of the students from every class left the academy and went to the training grounds. Neji was just telling a child about his fate when the incident occurred, and he looked really angry. Iruka looked around among the students and asked, "Has anyone seen Naruto?" Naruto gave each of the tiny toads a piece of candy and said, "Tatsu, Kichi, you guys have to go." After the small toads departed in a cloud of smoke, the group began to make their way to class, Naruto laughing far behind them. The children recognized them and knew they were involved. Iruka gave them a look that was obviously angry. Iruka walked over to them and asked, "Did you guys have anything to do with this?" "No, sir," Kiba replied, glancing at the academy instructor. "Where were you guys then?" Iruka asked, still furious. While eating some chips, Choji remarked, "I'm getting something to eat in the back." Since the school is located in the center of the village, Anbuz was already there to inspect the area and look into the origins of all the tiny frogs. The entire academy was covered in white smoke after all the small frogs vanished, leaving the Anbuz stunned beyond belief. Iruka went to inform the Hokage that it was not an attack after the Anbuz came outside and declared it safe for the children to return inside. After that, Naruto began walking toward class while the other boys laughed behind him. The girls were furious because they didn't want to use the restroom because of what had happened. Alongside Jiraiya, Jiraiya was working on gathering the natural chakra at the moment because he needed to review everything even though he already knew everything else. Pa struck him over the head with his cane after he collected the natural chakra and hit features were still warped. Jiraiya halted, resumed collecting the chakra, and managed to grasp it. His eyes changed, as did the mark beneath his eye, and he developed a small beard, but his face remained the same. Jiraiya was pleased to finish it faster than anticipated, and he was aware that since he had already mastered all of the sage techniques, that was all he could do. He still needed to review everything and, if he could, improve it. Pa held up his cane and said, "Now for the taijutsu." The man simply leapt into the air and dodged it like a toad as he swung the cane after Jiraiya, leaving a large crater in the large forest after each blow. Jiraiya was proficient in the sage arts, but he was aware that he needed to improve because he hadn't encountered a foe strong enough to require the Senin mode. He leapt to his feet and kicked the elderly sage, but the old toad deflected it with his cane, causing yet another crater to form on the ground. After school, hanging out with Naruto. When the academy's bell rang, Naruto began leaving, Hinata following closely behind him because they were heading in the same direction. With a big smile on his face and two things on his minda, the prank and his ninjutsu training, Naruto walked home with excitement while Hinata remained silent in the presence of her longtime crush. With his hands behind his head, Naruto looked directly at the girl and laughed as he asked, "Hey Hinata, how did you like the prank?" The girl blushed and tried not to look into his eyes as she said, "It was really funny Naruto-kun." "Yeah," Naruto said, laughing, and the Hyuga heiress gave him a quiet giggle. "I'll see you tomorrow, and you should wear something lighter because that jacket isn't helping you," Naruto said, grinning at her. Hinata asked herself, what is he trying to say? Following Jiraiya's instructions, Naruto ran inside his house and went upstairs to prepare for his training with the toad. He sealed his hands together and declared, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu," and he made 2 clones to go to the market district and get him food and something for Gamakichi and Gamatatsu. After going upstairs and changing out of everything, Naruto put on another pair of black training pants. Naruto descended the stairs and prepared for his toad training, but he was unaware that someone was attempting to spy on him. However, she was unable to do so because the walls surrounding the compound were sealed, negating the Byakugan's powers. After learning that the boy lived next door, Hinata made a concerted effort to spy on him, but she was a little annoyed that she was unable to watch him train. The toad that Jiraiya had introduced him to before he left was summoned by Naruto after he performed a series of hand seals and said, "Kachiyose no Jutsu." Summoning Jutsu. He then performed another set of hand seals and said, "Gama Kachiyose no Jutsu." Kichi, Tatsu. Toad summoning Jutsu. Kichi and Tatsu, calling forth his 2 favorite small toads. The 3 toads were staring at Naruto when he got up and surveyed the training area. Gamakino looked at the young child and said, "Okay, Naruto-san, let's get started." Gazing at the yellow-headed boy, Gamakichi exclaimed, "Hey Naruto, what's up?" With a glance at his 2 small toad companions, Naruto said, "Hey Kichi, Tatsu, my clones will be bringing you guys some snacks." "Let's get started, Naruto-san," Gamakino said, grinning at the young child. Gazing at the toad, Naruto questioned, "What do I do?" Even though the toad performed some moves simultaneously, indicating that the boy was reading him and they could imitate one another, Naruto began to mimic everything the toad did. Until the toad went home and said they would begin again tomorrow, Naruto spent the remainder of the day repeating the same activities with him. After that, he would move on and wait for Jiraiya to begin his training. Following the departure of the toads, when Naruto heard a knock on the door, he went to see who it was and noticed Hinata standing in front of his gates, sticking her fingers together. Naruto was about to go inside and take a shower and change his clothes. With his hands behind his back and his shirt off, Naruto stood in front of her, grinning, after opening the gates. As Hinata's face flushed from staring at his body, she began to poke her fingers together even more quickly. "Hey Hinata, may I be of assistance to you?" Naruto said, grinning at the girl. I, said Hinata, searching for the right words. Naruto became concerned at the girl's appearance and asked, "Are you okay? Do you have a fever or something?" N.N.No, Hinata uttered rapidly. Naruto yanked her into the compound and shut the gates after saying, "Come in." Since Naruto hadn't finished his ramen yet, he led her into the compound's dining area, where they sat down, Hinata attempting to sit as far away from him as she could. Naruto pulled out 2 bowls of ramen and asked, "Do you want some?" N.N.No, Hinata said, flushed. "Come on, have some," Naruto said, approaching her. He then put some food in her mouth with his chopstick, and she ate it while trying not to pass out right away and her face growing redder. Naruto-kun is feeding me, Hinata thought, avoiding eye contact. Gazing at the girl, Naruto questioned, "What did you want?" "Do it, Hinata thought, her face growing redder. This time, Hinata asked without stuttering, "I wanted to know what you meant by wearing lighter clothes." With his mouth full of ramen, Naruto said, "I just meant that you're really cute and you need to wear lighter clothes so that everybody can notice it." He was completely unaware of what he had just said. Before Hinata got up and fled the room, she thought, Naruto-kun just said that I'm cute. Naruto thought, what did I do? As he watched the girl fleeing. Hinata rushed back toward the yellow-headed boy and gave him a kiss on the lips before fleeing once more before she could exit the gates. With his face flushed and his heart pounding rapidly, Naruto stood there speechless. With a broad smile on his face and a laughing fox in his mind, he simply let himself drop to the ground. Naruto lay on the ground for 3 hours without moving. He did not even realize he was meditating during that time because he remained motionless. Naruto proceeded inside and entered the shower, his face still flushed. He was unsure of how to react to the unexpected kiss. The day after, in order to avoid running into the Hyuga princess on his way to school, Naruto got up earlier than normal to begin his morning workout. However, he was unaware that Hinata also got up earlier than normal in order to avoid running into the Namikaze air. After completing his morning exercise, Naruto made 4 clones and gave one of them instructions to change into a random civilian so that it could go and complete a task for him. To the female clone, Naruto said, "Go get me 10 buckets of paint." The untransformed clone left and went in the direction of the ramen shop after Naruto said, "Breakfast." Naruto told the final clone, "Please practice the taijutsu style." He received money from the Hokage, and he was pleasantly surprised when Jiraiya gave him a ton of money for the week. After performing some hand seals, Naruto uttered the words, "Kachiyose no jutsu," summoning jutsu, and conjured up the same toad from the previous day. However, he knew that he would get more practice because he would be performing the exercise all day long while he was in school. While waiting for the clone with the paint and the clone who went to get his breakfast, Naruto received all of the clone's memories, and the other clones also did so. The clone with the breakfast arrived and gave Naruto the food before dispelling himself. To maintain their strength, Naruto ate a portion of the ramen before giving the remainder to the toad and the other clones. After giving Naruto the paint he had sent her to buy, the paint wielding clone returned and dispelled herself, giving him 3 buckets of paint. After saying, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto made a clone and left the compound with the paint buckets, making the clone go toward the academy and the Hokage monuments. Since Hinata was already at the academy, Naruto did not run into her. Instead, he changed into the ninja he had witnessed Jiraiya kill the night he arrived in the village and began painting the monuments. He gave the second Hokage a large Irish mustache, the first Hokage some large side burns, a pipe in the mouth of the third, glasses around the eyes of the elderly man, and 2 red slashes down the fourth's eyes, just like Jiraiya. Before anyone could see his artwork, Naruto fled as quickly as he could from the monuments and returned to the compound to tidy up. When he arrived at the compound, he observed the 2 clones handling the toad as he had instructed. After washing his hands in a restroom, he began to make his way back to the academy. He was unaware that Sarutobi had seen everything he had done that day and was prepared to punish him. Before anyone could notice, Naruto arrived at the academy, dispelled the clone, and switched places with him. He then sat down and listened with a broad smile on his face. When Kiba arrived with Akamaru on his head, he was unable to enter the classroom because Sakura and another girl who had taken Ino's place were arguing in front of the door over who would get to sit next to Sasuke. Kiba became impatient and shoved them both inside, and they rolled down to the front of the class. While the girls were fighting with Kiba, who shoved them down the stairs, Naruto sat down and pretended nothing had happened. They didn't want to hit Kiba because they knew he would retaliate because he doesn't take shit from anyone. When Iruka first entered the classroom, he was grinning, but then he noticed Sakura and Kiba fighting over something. Iruka said, "Kiba, Sakura, please sit down," but they didn't follow his instructions. Using his large, menacing head jutsu, Iruka commanded, "Sit down." They promptly sat down and prepared for class. "We're going on a field trip today, class," Iruka said with a smile to his pupils. "Iruka. Sensei, where are we going?" asked Naruto dutifully. Iruka said, "Today for our history test, we're going to the top of the Hokage Tower to look at the Hokage monument," and Naruto burst out laughing. Iruka looked at Naruto and asked, "What is it?" "Nothing, Sensei," Naruto said, gathering his thoughts. He glanced at Hinata and began to flush as if the girl was blushing too, realizing that she had changed into a white shirt underneath a light jacket that was light enough to highlight all of her features. Shikamaru noticed that Hinata was blushing when she saw him staring at her, and they both turned around quickly. Shikamaru whispered in his friend's ear, "What happened with Hinata?" N. Nothing, Naruto said, becoming defensive. "Whatever," Shikamaru said, returning to his bored state. Naruto asked Shikamaru, glancing at his friend, "Did you complete the tree climbing exercise?" Looked at the yellow-headed boy, Shikamaru said, "Yeah, I did what you told me and it was such a drag since my shadow can last longer and go farther now." Iruka said, "Class, let's go out in a straight line." He was in front of the line, with Sasuke at his heels, Sakura behind him, and all the fangirls behind each other. Ino, Hinata, and Naruto were behind the shy princess, Shino behind the yellow-headed boy, Kiba behind Shino, Choji munching on some chips behind Kiba, Shikamaru behind his big friend, a group of unidentified boys behind them, and Mizuki at the end of the line. Sakura was so annoying that Sasuke had to yell at her in the middle of the street as they walked from the academy to the nearby Hokage tower. Naruto, who was standing behind the girl, said, "I see you changed your jacket, Hinata." Glancing back at her. "Y.Y.Y.es. Hinata stammered as she looked ahead, unwilling to meet the boy's gaze. Naruto grinned at the girl and said, "I'm glad you look cuter with it." "Yay, Naruto.kun just called me cute," Hinata mentally exclaimed. Glancing back at the reserved boy, Shino inquired, "Did you practice the tree climbing exercise?" "Yes, I completed it that same day and followed your instructions to boost my reserve." "Thank you," Shino said, glancing at the boy. "It's okay," Naruto said. At last, they arrived at the tower. As the class headed toward the summit of the Hokage tower to view the monuments, they eventually arrived at the tower but were still unaware of the prank. In case they discovered that he was the one who had pulled the prank, Naruto was already prepared to flee and was simultaneously scanning the area to see if anyone was searching for him. The Hokage would later join them after they ascended the stairs to the top of the Hokage tower. To bring the boy to him, Sarutobi summoned a team of Anbus inside the office. "Bring me Naruto Uzumaki," ordered the third. "Hi," the Anbus said as it left. The paintings depicting the faces of their fallen Kages were the first thing the class saw when they reached the summit of the tower. While everyone was screaming at what they saw, Naruto was only trying to find out if anyone was paying attention to him. 5 Anbus arrived at the tower and began observing the children. "Has anyone seen Uzumaki Naruto?" inquired the Anbu team captain. Before realizing that Naruto was not among the students in front of him, Iruka remarked, "He was right here." When one of the Anbu members noticed the yellow-haired boy running away and jumping from roof to roof, he exclaimed, "There he is." The Anbus immediately pursued the boy, running after him at full speed. Looking at the boy fleeing from the Anbus, who was supposedly the best of the shinobis trained to be under the Hokage himself, Iruka yelled, "Naruto, get back here." Iruka expressed her disappointment in the yellow-headed boy by saying, "Class, it seems we have to continue the class even with all the paintings on our fallen Hokages." Naruto was able to easily avoid the Anbus by running away from it at full speed and hiding and ducking all over the village. They were still unable to apprehend the boy, so Naruto used all of his knowledge to avoid the Anbus. He was getting a little tired after running from the top ninjas for 2 hours, but he was still able to move at full speed because he had trained his body with Jiraiya. He threw paint and mud at them, and as he was fleeing down an alley, he heard the words, "Mokuden, Jubuku no Jutsu." Wood style, tree restraints, and some wood crept up to his legs, holding him in place. Despite his best efforts, Naruto was unable to remove the wood from him. They arrived at the Hokage's office, where Naruto was massaging the back of his head while glancing at the third, when the Anbu member placed a hand on his head and they all vanished in a cloud of smoke and leaves. Naruto glared at the Anbu member and yelled, "Let me go, damn it." The Anbu member said, "Remain silent before you get into more trouble." Sarutobi questioned Naruto, closely observing the boy, "Why did you paint on the Hokage monuments?" "Because," with a great deal of resolve in his eyes, Naruto declared, "I'm going to surpass all of them." "That's great, but you still need to clean it up," Sarutobi said, grinning at the boy. "What, but Gramps?" Naruto complained as he gazed at the elderly Hokage. The third person's words to the Anbu member wearing the cat mask were, "Cat, please watch him so that he won't escape." The man wearing the cat mask replied, "Yes, sir." 5 days later, Sasuke made several attempts to fight Naruto over the last 5 days, but the boy refused to engage in combat because he didn't want to get into any trouble just yet. Since he had already completed the mimicking exercise with all the toads of his size, he spent all of his time getting closer to some of them and practicing it with Gamakichi and Gamadatsu. After waking up and going downstairs to the compound to get some food, Naruto prepared some eggs to eat before heading outside to begin his physical training. He ran the laps around the compound after performing the push-ups and sit-ups. After completing his physical training, Naruto sealed with one hand, uttered the words, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu, and made 2 shadow clones to fight alongside him as he prepared to leave for the academy. Jiraiya told Naruto that he would be learning ninjutsu today, so he didn't have to do the mimicking exercise with the toads. You guys have to spar on the lake, while I'm in the academy, he said. While Naruto was taking a shower inside, the clones ran toward the lake and began sparring in the style they were familiar with. Jiraiya appeared in front of Naruto as he was about to leave the compound after coming downstairs. Naruto hurried over to the legendary ninja and gave him a tearful hug. Jiraiya smiled and returned the hug before they parted ways. How was the week, Gaki? Jiraiya inquired, grinning as she gazed at the boy with the yellow hair. Naruto laughed and went on to tell Jiraiya all the details of the prank, saying, It was really fun. I met a lot of toads and pulled the biggest prank ever. Rewind. In order to avoid running into the Hyuga princess on his way to school, Naruto got up earlier than normal to begin his morning workout. However, he was unaware that Hinata also got up earlier than normal in order to avoid running into the Namikaze air. After completing his morning exercise, Naruto made 4 clones and gave one of them instructions to change into a random civilian so that it could go and complete a task for him. To the female clone, Naruto said, Go get me 10 buckets of paint. The untransformed clone left and went in the direction of the ramen shop after Naruto said, Breakfast. Naruto told the final clone, Please practice the taijutsu style. Surprisingly, Jiraiya gave him a ton of money for the week, and the Hokage was also giving him money. After performing some hand seals, Naruto uttered the words, Kachiyose no Jutsu, summoning jutsu, and conjured up the same toad from the previous day. However, he knew that he would get more practice because he would be performing the exercise all day long while he was in school. The clone with the paint arrived, and Naruto waited for him. The clone with the breakfast came and gave Naruto the food before dispelling himself, giving Naruto all of the clone's memories, and the other clones followed suit. To maintain their strength, Naruto ate a portion of the ramen before giving the remainder to the toad and the other clones. After giving Naruto the paint he had sent her to buy, the paint wielding clone returned and dispelled herself, giving him 3 buckets of paint. After saying, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto made a clone and left the compound with the paint buckets, making the clone go toward the academy and the Hokage monuments. Since Hinata was already at the academy, Naruto did not run into her. Instead, he changed into the ninja he had witnessed Jiraiya kill the night he arrived in the village and began painting the monuments. He gave the second Hokage a large Irish mustache, the first Hokage some large sideburns, a pipe in the mouth of the third, glasses around the eyes of the elderly man, and 2 red slashes down the fourth's eyes, just like Jiraiya. Before anyone could see his artwork, Naruto fled as quickly as he could from the monuments and returned to the compound to tidy up. When he arrived at the compound, he observed the 2 clones handling the toad as he had instructed. After washing his hands in a restroom, he began to make his way back to the academy. He was unaware that Sarutobi had seen everything he had done that day and was prepared to punish him. Before anyone could notice, Naruto arrived at the academy, dispelled the clone, and switched places with him. He then sat down and listened with a broad smile on his face. When Kiba arrived with Akamaru on his head, he was unable to enter the classroom because Sakura and another girl who had taken Ino's place were arguing in front of the door over who would get to sit next to Sasuke. Kiba became impatient and shoved them both inside, and they rolled down to the front of the class. This is the end of the flashback. Jiraiya laughed and remarked, You are one hell of a kid, just like your mom was when she was young. Looking at his sensei, Naruto remarked, You can at least tell me about my mom, right? With a sly smile, Jiraiya said, All right, send a shadow clone to the academy, we are training for the entire day. Naruto stepped back from the legendary Toad Sage of the 3 Sanins and said, W. Why do you have that look on your face? Gazing at the boy, Jiraiya laughed and said, Just do it. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu, was Naruto's favorite jutsu, and he used it to create a single clone with enough chakra to last the entire day. The clone would not dispel after a single hit. Naruto was still staring at his godfather Jiraiya with that terrified expression on his face as the clone hurried out of the compound toward the academy. Jiraiya went inside to put on his training clothes, followed by Naruto, saying, All right, get in your training clothes. Naruto and Jiraiya returned to the training area wearing only their pants and no shirt. Jiraiya was grinning as he stood across from the boy. All right, Jiraiya said, glancing at the boy, let me first explain the jutsu to you. The toad oil jutsu is mainly a diversion jutsu, but when you are in a team it can turn into a great combination half. Your teammate can use a fire jutsu and you use the toad oil, and when they combine the fire will be 5 times stronger with the toad oil. I can also use combination jutsu with the toad boss. He would spit out the oil and I would create the fire, making a big and dangerous fireball, Jiraiya told the child. All Naruto wanted to say was, awesome. Alright, Jiraiya said, glancing at the boy, let me show you how to do it. After slowly performing a few hand seals, he said, Gamma Ninpo. Gamayuden. Toad Ninja Art. Toad Oil Jutsu, and his cheeks ballooned before he spat out some oil that struck the training dummy bullseye on the head. After completing the jutsu, Jiraiya returned to stand next to the boy with the yellow hair. Naruto jumped up and down in place and yelled, cool. Jiraiya said, let me show you the hand seals, and she proceeded to show the boy each hand seal individually. After slowly performing the hand seals for the jutsu, Naruto said, Gamma Ninpo. Gamayuden. Toad Ninja Art. Toad Oil Jutsu, and nothing happened. He then turned to face Jiraiya gravely. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, Gaki, focus the chakra in your stomach to collect the oil, then move it up to your mouth before spitting it out. Okay, Naruto said, his eyes full of resolve as he turned to face his teacher. After concentrating some chakra in his stomach, Naruto began to collect the oil. He used the same hand seal and said, Gamma Ninpo. Gamayuden. Toad Ninja Art. Toad Oil Jutsu, before using his chakra to move the oil to his mouth. A small amount of oil emerged from his mouth, but it was only 3 feet away from where he was standing. With a smile on her face, Jiraiya said, now you know what to do, just use more chakra to more oil and move it up to your mouth quicker. In the academy, the clone sat in his seat, joking with the boys and paying attention to everything that was happening in class. Iruka was making the class particularly dull today, and although he wanted to leave, he stayed because he was worried that the boys would discover he was a clone. He didn't even bother to look at the Uchiha Avenger, even though Sasuke was glaring at him from the other side. Other students were observing him. Sakura was glaring at the yellow boy, and Hinata was merely giving him fleeting glances every few minutes. He eventually made the decision to give in to the monotonous class and dozed off. Iruka used his large, frightening head jutsu to yell, Naruto, Shikamaku, wake up, startling the boys and instantly waking them up. Naruto looked at his teacher and said, we up. Name all the Hokages and what they were known for, Naruto, Iruka said, glancing at the boy. Sakura raised her hands in laughter and said, let me, Iruka. Sensei, he will never get this right. Iruka looked at the girl and said, Sakura, put your hand down. Iruka looked at the boy and said, Naruto, I'm waiting. First Hokage, named Senju Hashirama, he was one of the founders of this village along with Uchiha Madara. It is said that he created this village using his Mokuton-style jutsu. He later fought and defeated Uchiha Madara to get the title of Hokage. Second Hokage, named Senju Tobarama, he was the brother of the first Hokage. He was known for being able to create a vast amount of water with no water source around. He was a master of water-style ninjutsus. The third Hokage, named Gramps or Gigi, no that's not it, looked at his sensei. Naruto questioned the great demon, hey Q.San, what's Gramps' name? Kyuubi remarked, Sarutobi Hiruzen, as she laughed at the boy. Thank you, Naruto said to the fox. Sakura glared at the boy and questioned, why do you call the third Gramps and hurry up? From behind Naruto, Kiba yelled, shut the hell up, Sakura. The third Hokage, named Sarutobi Hiruzen, known as the god of shinobi for his knowledge of ninjutsu, he was trained by the first and second Hokages. He trained the 3 legendary ninjas known as the Sanins. Jiraiya was one of them, and that's all I can remember. He's been in office longer than all of the other Hokages combined. The fourth Hokage, name I don't really know, he was the strongest and youngest of all the other Hokages. He was trained by the legendary Sannin Jiraiya. He was known all around the world as the Yellow Flash of Konoha for his teleportation ninjutsu. He died fighting against the strongest of all, the tailed demon, sealing the demon inside a baby, giving his own life. Naruto spoke quietly to the instructor. Everyone stared at him in disbelief that Naruto knew all that information about the village and was supposed to be a fool. That's correct, Iruka said, grinning at the boy. Sakura pointed to the boy and shouted, he cheated. Naruto asked, glaring at the girl, from what? Sakura had nothing to say and simply gazed at the class. From behind Naruto, Kiba laughed and said, think before you fucking talk, forehead. Iruka looked at the boy and said, Naruto, if you knew all this, why did you vandalize the monuments? Naruto grinned and said, because I'm going to surpass all of them. This is Namikaze compound. Good, Jiraiya said, grinning at the boy. You will focus on mastering the jutsu and its accuracy for the next 2 days, Jiraiya said, glancing at the boy. Naruto looked at his sensei and said, can't I do it with the clones? Yes, this is how we're going to do it now. Every time you can perform a jutsu with full power, you can use the clones to completely master the jutsu, Jiraiya replied as he looked at the child. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, make 5 clones so they can finish this jutsu while we work on something else. As directed by his sensei, Naruto created 5 clones, saying, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu. The 5 clones proceeded to stand opposite a practice dummy and began practicing the jutsu by going through the series of hand seals. They all uttered the phrase, Gamma Ninpo, Gamayuden, Toad Ninja Art, Toad Oil Jutsu, together, and then they ejected oil from their mouths, striking the training dummies. They repeatedly performed the same action while increasing the jutsu's power. Now do it against each other, try to hit each other running slowly and increase the speed over time, Jiraiya instructed the clones, and they began to run slowly, resembling academy students performing hand seals to the jutsu. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, okay, Naruto, call forth the toad you wish to use the combination jutsu with. Naruto bit his thumb and proceeded slowly through the summoning jutsu series of hand seals. After placing blood on his palm, he uttered the word, calling forth a toad that was nearly as large as Hiwasa, the same one he had first trained with. Gazing at the boy with the yellow hair, Jiraiya said, you can go back Gamakino, he's not ready for the jutsu. Naruto looked at the man and yelled, what do you mean? Jiraiya looked at the toad and said, he will summon you later, Gamakino. The toad then returned to Mount Myoboku, and Jiraiya looked at his pupil. You do hand seals too slowly, Jiraiya remarked, glancing at the boy. But, Naruto attempted to beg his sensei. With a serious expression on his face, Jiraiya said, don't say anything. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, start practicing each hand seal one at a time until you can execute them quickly under any kind of pressure. Naruto began slowly reviewing all of the hand seals he had learned in the academy as well as those Jiraiya had just demonstrated to him because he had only recently learned them. He could hit a fast, moving target with the toad oil 3 times out of 5. His clones were still practicing the toad oil jutsu, performing the seals for the jutsu faster and faster until they ran out of chakra and they all dispelled it, sending the experience back to Naruto and the clone at the academy. Since they were unable to stop themselves when they began to slip on the oil, the clones devised a move where they spit out the oil onto the ground, slowing down the others. Jiraiya instructed Naruto to continue reviewing the hand seals, and now they needed to go grab a bite to eat. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, we're taking a break, going to get something to eat. Ramen! Shouted Naruto as he ran at full speed toward the compound's entrance. Jiraiya yelled, slow down, boy, as she ran after him. This is Ichiraku Ramen. Jiraiya and Naruto entered the small stand and sat down on a stool to wait for someone to take their orders. The old man was sitting in the back of the ramen stand because there was no business because school hadn't let out yet. Since he had yet to see a Yame or the elderly man, Naruto was growing increasingly irritated. Naruto yelled, hey, old man, from his chair. Is that you, Naruto? Yelled the elderly man behind the ramen stall. When Naruto saw the elderly man in front of him, he said, yes. Tucci gazed at the legendary Toad Sage and remarked, oh, you are here with your sensei again. Hello Jiraiya. Sama, Tucci said as she greeted the elderly man. Jiraiya put up the peace sign and said, hey. After ordering and eating, they returned to the compound to continue Naruto's training, which was going really well because Naruto picked things up quickly once you demonstrated them to him. The Namikaze compound. Jiraiya entered the compound, and they proceeded to the training area to prepare Naruto for using the combination ninjutsus with the toads. However, he must first become proficient in his wind chakra type. Because of his mother and father, Jiraiya was aware that he possessed the wind and water chakras. Now, he only needed to confirm his suspicions. While waiting for his training session to begin, Naruto stood across from his sensei. Jiraiya said, I'll be right back, Gaki, before vanishing in a cloud of smoke. Naruto yelled, Sensei, to his deceased sensei. Jiraiya showed up near the lake where the hot springs are. He pulled a sword out of a scroll and was about to chop down a tree to gather its leaves when he changed his mind. Gazing at the tree, Jiraiya thought, if I cut trees around here, I won't have any place to hide for my research. He vanished in a cloud of smoke, then resurfaced in the forest outside the village's wall, where he chopped off numerous tree branches because he needed the leaves for Naruto's training. Jiraiya returned to the compound to begin the boy's training after sealing the branches in a storage scroll. Jiraiya looked at the boy gravely and said, "Okay, Naruto, this is one of the hardest trainings you will ever have to go through." "What?" a slightly apprehensive Naruto asked. Pulling out a piece of paper, Jiraiya said, "Come here." As she handed him the piece of paper, Jiraiya said, "Flow your chakra through this." When Naruto's chakra passed through the small piece of paper, it broke into 4 equal pieces. One piece burned, one piece became wet, one piece crumbled to dust, and the final piece simply appeared to have been balled up. Naruto turned to face his sensei, expecting the man to explain himself, but Jiraiya remained motionless, his eyes and mouth agape. Jiraiya remained motionless for a full minute despite Naruto's attempts to get him to move. At last, the legendary Toad Sage moved, and he fell directly onto his butt. Glancing at the man, Naruto questioned, "What is wrong with you, sensei? You don't see someone who can use all 5 elements very often, and someone as young as you has hardly ever seen," Jiraiya said, grinning at the boy. Naruto jumped up and down and exclaimed, "Yeah, I'm awesome," before he began to run joyfully around the compound. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "All right, let's get started. The quicker you finish this, the sooner we can work on the combination jutsu." "Yeah," cried Naruto, who was facing the Toad Sage. "Make as many clones as you can, Naruto," Jiraiya said, glancing at the boy. Jiraiya interrupted Naruto just as he was about to perform the hand seals. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "We can't do this here." Using the body flicker jutsu, Jiraiya placed his hand on Naruto's head and the two of them vanished in a cloud of smoke. In the midst of the forest of death, which was primarily used for the Chunin exam, the two reappeared. Jiraiya placed the branches on the ground after unsealing them from the forest outside the village. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Now make as many clones as you can." 200 clones appeared all around the two as Naruto performed the single-handed seal required to execute the Shadow Clone Jutsu and yelled, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu." Pointing to the branches on the ground, Jiraiya said, "Now, each of you, grab a leaf." Jiraiya sat on a nearby rock and waited for them to prepare to begin as each of the clones picked a leaf from the branches that were on the ground, leaving only the stick. When they sensed that the clone at the academy had dispersed, Naruto and the other clones stood around Jiraiya, each holding a leaf, knowing that the academy was coming to an end. "All right, now you have to use your chakra to cut the leaf in half," Jiraiya said, demonstrating for the boy how to do it by taking a leaf from one of the trees and holding it in his palm. He then focused his chakra on the leaf, causing it to split in half. Looking at his sensei, Naruto asked, "How did you do that?" "Just think about your wind chakra, it is like a blade. Think about it and flow it to leaf and make it as thin as possible cutting the leaf. This training takes other ninjas years to master. But with you clones you can train one with 100 clones, and you will gain 100 days worth of training," explained Jiraiya as he looked at the child. Naruto began the training by screaming, "You heard Jiraiya. Sensei." The clones all got to work chopping the leaf in two. Later on in the evening, because Naruto used the fox's chakra to make more clones in order to finish faster, he finished cutting the leaf just before nightfall. Although he completed the training in 400 days because he used the clones to assist him, Jiraiya was proud that he was able to complete the first portion in a single day. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Okay, let's head back to the compound. I'll explain the Sekon part to you and you can start on it tomorrow morning." In order to get to the compound where they would rest the following day, they began to leave the forest of death. With her Byakugan activated, Hinata stood outside her family compound, anticipating the return of the yellow-headed boy, whom she had lost when school let out. When Hinata saw Naruto and Jiraiya approaching the compound slowly, she hurriedly placed 2 bentos filled with various foods in front of the compound gates before sprinting back to her family's compound, her face flushed and her heart pounding. When Jiraiya and Naruto arrived at the front of the compound, they noticed food cases with notes on the ground. The note simply read, "I hope you enjoy it, Naruto.kun, and Naruto. Kun's guardian," and Jiraiya picked it up and read it. Gazing at the boy, Jiraiya teased, "Looks like you got a crush cooking for you, Gaki." "Shut up, Gigi," Naruto said, blushing as he looked at the man. After Naruto picked up one of the food cases and gave it to Jiraiya, they entered the compound. They went inside and sat down to eat. As they opened the cases, a mouthwatering aroma filled their nostrils, making them both salivate. Jiraiya and Naruto simply shoved food into their faces while eating at an incredible rate. Naruto put his bento down and remarked, "Man, that was delicious." "Yeah, I'll say," Jiraiya replied, following suit. Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Okay, Naruto, you need to rest because we are going to finish the training tomorrow." The nine-tailed demon lord told the child, "Remind Jiraiya to come to your mindscape." "I nearly forgot," Naruto told the fox. Naruto told the toad sage, "Gigi," Juubi said, "Don't forget to go to my mindscape." Jiraiya looked at the boy and said, "Oh, I almost forgot." After walking and sitting in front of the boy, Jiraiya closed his eyes and placed his hand on the boy's yellow head. He discovered that he was in a large room with numerous doors rather than the sewer where they were used, but the walls were somewhat dated and some of them were brand new. The location changed from a sewer to an old building with some of the walls brand new, indicating that they were getting newer over time, as Naruto has been becoming happier with his life. The front of the location where Juubi was sealed was reached by Jiraiya. Juubi said, "Hello Jiraiya, would you mind sitting down?" as he glanced at the man holding a large chewing toy between his teeth. Sitting in a meditative position, Jiraiya said, "Hey there, Juubi." The demon lord closed his eyes and entered Jiraiya's mindscape. Upon entering, he was greeted by a number of images of radiant, seductive, nude young ladies grinning. With a broad smile, he went around adjusting the man's eyes, making copies of the photos, and mentally storing them. Juubi said, "It's done," and Jiraiya opened his eyes. "Thank you, I'll see you around," Jiraiya said as she stood up. "No problem," Juubi replied, returning to his toy chewing. The real world. Naruto returned inside to begin his meditation session on the small lake after taking the cases and placing them in front of the gates with a note of gratitude attached. Jiraiya told him that he had to meditate on the water even though he wanted to meditate somewhere else.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.